Hello and welcome to episode 157 of Masters of the Forge. I'm Adam, and this is Jason.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Adam.
And today we have a special guest, John. Hi, John.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
Ooh.
Cool. Glad you could join us.
Sexy English voices.
I know you love it.
Also featuring is my special friend, Hops.
Hey, cheers.
It's very interesting to... One should probably not take their pills with alcohol, but...
What?
Anyways.
I hate it when I have to be the voice of reason. You know that. Okay.
They're not opiates. It's my vitamins. So, John,
Vitamins.
we had John on because we wanted, with these highlights on factions, as much as we can, to get somebody on who knows something about the faction from a more intimate level. It doesn't have to be, from every aspect of the hobby. Like, someone doesn't need to have like a 20,000 points of painted whatever, or they don't have to have read all the novels, but someone who's at least somewhat passionate about the faction. We wanted to have them on. So that's why we asked John to be on, because he's one of the folks that frequent the independent characters Discord, and before that you were on the message boards, right, John?
Was on what? Sorry.
The IC's message boards. Were you part of that?
I was not. I actually missed that entirely, and I don't really post on the Facebook page very much either. My main engagement with the IC's podcast is on the Discord. So anyone who's on the IC's Discord will know me as John Paints. And that is also my Instagram handle, where I post my models if anyone's interested to see them. Nice.
Well, they should be, because you paint very well. You're a great painter. You're like kind of the polar opposite of me, where you put decent effort into all of your models and they look just stunning. Your blood angels are beautiful. Like, people like, I think we talked about your Fire Raptor a few weeks ago. That thing looks just gorgeous, especially for being such a beast of a model. So, John, aside from that, you were in the hobby a long time ago, right?
That's right. So I started the hobby when I was about 8 years old. A friend of mine, his big brother had some square-based epic in his bedroom, and I saw it, and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. My first models were, for those of you who are very old, you might remember a box called Space Marine Land Raiders, which had square-based Mark VI Space Marines and a load of Land Raiders, and they were painted red. And that was my start with the Blood Angels. So when I was about 8, I think I got them for my 8th birthday. I'm now 34, so I'm long in the tooth in the hobby.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, you still collect the Blood Angels. You're still buying new models, and you're still painting old models, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Have you worked on any of the Primaris stuff?
I have not. I'm one of those dreaded Primaris refuseniks. That is a lie, actually. I have painted one Primaris Marine, a Black Templar, for a local competition. And yeah, it's a Space Marine. It's a bit bigger.
Nice.
I will say, I do think I can see why people like them. I think the proportions are much better. There's really no getting around that. They are, they're what I think a lot of people in the conversion community have been waiting for years. And if I would start completely again, I would probably do old style Space Marines using the Primaris bodies. Would probably be what I would do if I would start again.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Like those bodies are great, and you slap a beaky head on those suckers or something like that, and they look amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also seen some absolutely fantastic space wolves using the Mark III heads. They look brilliant. There's a lot you can do with those, upsized bodies, and yeah, I think that's the way I would go. If I would start a game, I would probably do old Marines, new style, if that makes sense.
That's
And
fantastic, and that's a healthy approach to like you're kind of like a conscientious objector, which is nice.
I think that's a wonderful way to describe it, actually, Adam. I like that a lot. I'm a Primaris conscientious objector. There you go. I'll take that, and I'm very pleased with that.
Fantastic. All right,
I
great.
think one thing I would say is, for me, this is a very personal take on it. Is a lot of the models that I paint now are models that I had when I was 14 years old.
Wow.
And when I restarted the hobby in 2013, I dumped them all in a box of Dettol, which stank, and used it to strip the paint off. And I've been sort of carefully rebuilding my models that I had when I was a kid. And that's part of what I have in my collection. So part of it for me, honestly, is a big dose of nostalgia.
Right. But you're still collecting like a bunch of the Forge World and other
Absolutely.
stuff, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So you mentioned the Fire Raptor recently. So Adam and Jason were both on a hobby hangout with me while I was building said Fire Raptor. I can only say it deserves all of its reputations. It is a beautiful model. I think it's the far and away the most just best looking Space Marine flyer. It's brutal and sleek. It is a nightmare to build. The only way to build it is to accept that it cannot fit together. At that point, you can then build it. Once you've reached this sort of plateau of acceptance, opens up before you. You realize it simply cannot fit together, and then you can build your Fire Raptor. And that's how the process works.
That is an excellent bit of advice, and I see the wisdom in it. Because if you're sitting there trying to make it fit and you could spend hours of your life trying to get that thing to fit. What if you just say, well, I'm going to have to do something dumb to get this to work. Let's do it.
Do it. Just accept the large gaps. They will be there. That's what Milliput is for. That's how you build a Fire Raptor.
Brush off those sculpting skills or those plasticard skills and
absolutely
have at it. All right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
If I ever get the Fire Raptor, I'm talking to you first.
Yeah.
So, it's a beautiful model. I really want to get one, but then I hear about the building issues, and I kind of want to say, no, thanks, I'm good.
Well, and it makes sense for like the blood angels. They have such a penchant for aerial combat. I think that makes real good sense as a centerpiece model for a Blood Angels army.
I entirely agree. And there's a second reason as well. And this comes back to what I find really exciting about the chapter. Maybe I'm jumping ahead.
No, it's fine.
But I like to think of this Fire Raptor as being 10,000 years old.
Right.
This is one of the things that I really like about the Blood Angels in particular and Space Marines in general, is this idea of truly ancient relics that provide a connection to the past across time spans are almost unimaginable. So this thing is itself a true relic, probably sacred to the chapter.
Yeah, it's
because
venerable.
of the things it will have seen. I mean, for all they know, it may not be 10,000 years old. Maybe it was made a mere 8,000 years ago when they could still manufacture them. But it's almost the myth is more important than the reality. I think that's one of the things that really I find exciting about it.
Right. I like to think of like the machine spirits definitely have a personality and they have a memory, right? And they're all kind of trained over hundreds or thousands of years. And like the machine spirits of these of these ancient war machines are venerated by the tech priests and everything like that. Sometimes like my crazy brain likes to think of like these, especially some of the more vaulted machine spirits, like of like Titans and stuff. Maybe they started off like in M20 or whatever as like coffee makers, and they eventually just survive. Like, they survive long
keep
enough,
going.
and they just keep going. They're like, well, this is an old machine, so let's install this in something else, Like, why does the coffee maker, why is the recaf brewer in this Warlord Titan make such good coffee? I can't imagine why. Because it's been doing.
Why is it so angry?
Why is it so? Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, John. We'll move on to. Oh, looks like I'm first this month. My hobby progress has been interesting, a little different. So for New Year's, I did finish those 3 Blood Bowl goblins, the ones I got from Forge World. They got the secret weapons like the chainsaw and the bomb and the ball and chain. Those are adorable. I love them. Now, I posted them everywhere because I like the good brain chemicals. I like to stroke my ego. And people were really nice, and as usual. But I posted on the Blood Bowl group on Facebook, and the first and only comment is, "Yeah, too bad you can only get them from Forge World for like $1 million or whatever." I'm like, homie, I play 40K. I spend $35 on one character. That's how much these guys cost. So I stopped following that group. It is super toxic.
Yeah.
Then I started building. Well, I built the Night Preceptor that I got from the Secret Santa on the IC's Discord. That's a cool kit. It's the same kit as the other kits, really. But the cool thing is it's got all the weapon options. So I built the chainsword and the fist and the Gatling cannon and the super laser sword. Those all could be built independently if you magnetize at the lower shoulder. Because the upper arm is unique. But if you magnetize at the lower shoulder, it's fine. I think you can kind of magnetize at the gun as well, but that's like complicated. I got the turret. I magnetized the turret too. So the turret has a missile. You get one of 2 missiles, but the faceplate couches nicely after you build the missile launcher. It's not one of those where it's locked in by the top locking to the bottom. It's slid onto the front. So I had a piece of square plastic card, like it's like a square tube, and I cut it and glued it to the back and put a magnet in that tube. And then I put a magnet inside the turret so that when I slide that in, it holds. So I have both missile options, but the only thing I didn't have was like the lower arm for 2 of the guns, the rapid fire battle cannon and the Melta whatever. The Melta whatever, I'm like, I could do without it, but I could use a rapid fire battle cannon. So I fired up the new resin printer that Wendy got me for Christmas, the Elegoo Mars 2 Pro, and I printed this lower arm 4 times. There's a learning curve. There's a learning curve. I've made some terrain, so that's good. There's nothing wrong with making some terrain. But yeah, I eventually got that lower arm printed, so I can I have it magnetized and I have a battle cannon. Pretty sweet.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Cool. Yeah, I'm not one to like make entire models that are in print. I'm not gonna do that. That's outside my moral sphere. But I'll definitely use it for out of print stuff or like bits, because let's keeping it 100. If I make a Chaos Space Marine army and I want 4, or if I make a Space Marine army or whatever and I want a Devastator squad with 4 of the same gun, I'm gonna have 4 of the same gun.
Yeah,
that's what I'm gonna do. But anyways, yeah, so I did that, and I think I got the hang of it. I probably will print some Battlefleet Gothic next. I'm not sure. We'll
Yeah.
see. I don't
Just
have an
watch
Imperial fleet, but
just watch those the files. I painted the ones that we had printed up, and they were pretty nice, but they had like big gaping holes in them, and I had to fix them.
oh, really? You had printed ones as well?
Oh, so yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, the ones that I painted up, those were all 3D printed. And I don't know, like I'm not sure about this. I'll have to ask Da, but it was either right when he was learning how to use the printer, or I think right when the printer was having a little bit of problems. And so like almost every ship had a hole in it.
But
the size of like
chaos.
a thin cigarette almost. Yeah, but it's Thousand Suns, so I couldn't
I would
to pull
think
it up.
I think that Thousand Suns would be the type to smoke Virginia Slims, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last note I have for hobby progress is I am very impressed with the Citadel Lead Belcher spray. I wanted to point that out.
Oh yeah.
I've had this can for I bought it on a whim at my FLGS at Flipside because I was like, well, I want to support the store, but I really don't want to buy new kits. Last thing I need is another Space Marine kit or whatever. So I was like, well, I'll give this a try. So I bought it. I bought the Lead Belcher, and I used it a few times on little things. But then I cracked it open this week and hosed down that night, man. And I'll tell you what, I did that outside in the freaking moist New York winter air, cold.
Yeah.
I think it was like 32 degrees or something Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And I hosed that thing down with a Lead Belcher. I brought it in, and I'll tell you what, that metal was rock hard in just a few minutes. It wasn't tacky. It was hard, and within a couple of hours, like I could tap it with my fingernail, and I was pressing on it with my finger, and it was not leaving a single mark. Like my knuckles were white from me pressing on it just to test it, and there was nothing. That stuff is excellent.
I've been impressed with their.
It's also $20. It's $20 a can.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But
you get what you paid for.
You don't always, I mean, most of the time you do, but sometimes you're like, why did I spend money on this? But in this case, you are getting what you pay for, I think, for sure.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. All right, Jason, what's your hobby progress looking like?
It's been interesting. I should have finished the Changeling since last time, but this past week I haven't done any hobby, but I do have hobby from the week before. So Changeling just needs some work on the headstock of the staff or whatever it's called. I also need a new base for it. So
okay.
Also, I finally have a paint scheme for my knights and my admech. I'm going with the. I'm super happy about this. It's the Shao Arcade, Forge World, not the Forge World, but a Night House. Or well, hold on, that's the Forge World, but then the Night House is another name. But it's
it doesn't matter. They usually have the same scheme if it's a Mechanicus, right?
Yeah, they typically do. It's weird because it's a Forge World that goes back to 30K. It was associated with Thousand Suns, and they have like a Forge World and Admech and Knights. Then they have a Titan Legion that has a different color scheme, like completely different. So yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. I'll get that sorted. But the colors are bronze, green, emerald green, silver. So I did go through and paint a bunch of test models, like some Skitarii and some Rust Stalkers and Electro Priest. And I'm pretty happy with the color scheme. It's super easy for me to do. It did remind me though that I need to really work on flesh. I'm that's just not my. I'm just not really great at that, so I have to keep working on it. If we had gone to Adepticon, you and I and Mike were supposed to all take the flesh painting with Shoshi, so maybe the next time we have Adepticon.
Thanks for bringing up those sad memories. Or sorry, the sadness of the lack of memories. I'll have to take another sip.
Pretty much. I do have an Adepticon 2020 pint glass that I've been drinking out of.
Yeah, nice.
Let's see. I ordered some the Adeptus Titanicus Questoris Knights, so I can kind of do some more paint tests because, I kind of want to figure out what I need to do for the Knights and then explode it out.
Sucker! I got you to buy Adeptus Titanicus. You're just going to buy more and more stuff.
Yeah, that's. I already looked like I ordered them, and I was sitting going, well, when I used to order the starter kit, I was like, no, stop it.
Yeah,
so
that's fantastic.
I might end up ordering them like in February or March. I'll see. I am happy with the AdMech results though, so I did order some more of that emerald green just so I can have it on hand because it's super hard to find.
Remind everybody what one that was again.
That one is Vallejo. What is it? It's a Vallejo Model Air paint, and it's Cockpit Emerald Green Faded, which is a really long name for for a paint, but whatever. Let's see. Hobby Nights. I want to thank everyone that's joined the Hobby Hangouts over the holidays. That includes John, who's with us today. That includes people from the Independent Characters, the Adeptus Terra group, the Upstate Honor Guard. It's been really great. I truly appreciate it. It's helped me, give me a chance to meet new people. I discovered there's a lot of people who know who I am and I don't know who they are, and it kind of weirds me out sometimes. Because like they actually know things about what I'm doing at the hobby. I'm like, oh yeah, I did that, didn't I? And I like to, actually like to meet people, and I'm kind of an introvert. So
and it's good. I guess for this time when you can't be around people, like it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to make time in person with people, and also even people who have families and stuff, like big families with kids and shit. Like, sometimes it can feel lonely if you don't have somebody to talk to about your passions, right? So, like and have them understand what you're talking about, So it's good. It's good for everybody.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank Brian from Splinter Mind for having us on. His, I think we already thanked him, but I want to thank him again just because it was nice to meet some people that I wasn't aware of or hadn't met yet. Let's see. And I want to give a shout out to it seems to be my new Ghost Tent support group, Max, Coach Ben, and Keith. And I want to give a shout out to Pete from NGC 40K for basically being our sponsor / mediator while we had a rather in-depth discussion about how much we liked and loved Ghost Tents from Minotaur. I think all four of us are using Ghost Tents through the airbrush over metallic bases, and we gave us a chance to talk about how much we liked it and actually give some hints to each other because not everybody's using them for that sort of thing. What else? Thousand Suns Fleet. I finally delivered them to the game store, so they're out of my hobby area. For Secret Santa. Because I think the last time we talked, I was about to walk out the door and get my Secret Santa stuff. I got a Changeling, another one, which is kind of cool. I got to figure out how I'm going to print that. And then I got a 3D print of an Egyptian / Thousand Suns themed demon prince, which is super cool.
I was going to print you one.
It's a different one the one that you sent me, that's a different one.
Really?
That's funny. There's multiple ones out there. This one,
Nice.
like you sent that picture, I was like, that's really awesome. But then Daw printed this other one up that's completely different. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
totally down with having another, Thousand
Right.
Suns
Cool.
Egyptian demon prints. I will say that I have a feeling my hobby progress may be light for the next few weeks, just because the semester starts on Monday. Yay! And I've got some administrative duties that I have to take care of, and that they're going to flood me, so I'm not going to have a whole lot of hobbying, which I'm kind of bummed about. But
Administrative duties.
Yeah, what it means
I mean,
is
that's
it's stuff I get to
like
do without getting paid.
like that could be administrative duties, like poop, or it could be like
Depending on how you.
it could be it could be like administrative duties.
No, it's going to be from column A and not column B. I will tell you that already. Yeah, I know, nothing fun. It's going to be it's going to be drudgery, but I'll get it done. So, games played. Did you get any games in, Adam?
No. Wait, did I? No.
No,
Well, it's the holidays. It's the holidays. It's really hard, and I've been playing way too much, like, video games. Actually, I've been staying up to like 2 a.m. playing video games. I need to stop doing that. It's stupid, real stupid. But there is something in hobby progress wise that I forgot to mention. Wendy's Christmas present, that she got from my brother-in-law, works really nicely. The dry brush, the makeup brushes, holy mother of God. Wow.
Okay.
I dry brushed. So, I did during the hobby hangout the other night, I did the washes and the dry brush on that night. And man, holy moly, those dry brushes are nice. I'm not sure how it would be on like a Space Marine tank. I'm still like, I've painted them before, but usually just like slapdash BS work. I'm not sure how it would work as a tank brush, but I think it would be really good. Like the dry brush went on real nice. I'm really excited about those. Yeah. Very happy with it.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll have to go back and look at that picture and see if I can order some.
Yeah, you should.
They're the
you should
Eco
give
Tools,
it
right?
Eco Tools. Yeah, give it a try. I think it's like $24 for the pack, and they've got you come with like six of them. One of them is in. Well, yeah, the GW one is like $15 for the big one, I think, or $20 for the big one.
Yeah.
So what's your your hobby progress is interesting. Or sorry, your Beyond the Fringe is interesting.
My games played.
Oh, your games.
Yeah, I've been playing combat cards on iOS, or I know I'm playing on iOS, but I think they have a stuff on Google Play or whatever. There's an independent characters group on there that Mark S has created, and so I joined that for fun.
Yeah,
I mean it's a deck building game, whatever. I'm not particularly like fond of those, but this one's kind of fun. I like the orcs because they're orcs. It's easy.
No, it was fun. I played it a few times and it was fun. Certainly a lot more fun than the World of Warcraft one, which made me want to murder everyone who exists. Let's put it that way. Let's just put it that way. Everybody should die because they're terrible human beings, especially because they don't let you talk to the person. So, I'm the opposite. If I can talk to, you know what? No, I would probably still get banned from there because I would just be mean and use the C word a lot.
I think that, the way this matches up is that you're not actually playing against the other person. You're playing against their deck and a computer AI.
Yeah. Because
the action is just too quick for it to be. It's too quick for the communication to be, person to person, if that makes sense.
Right.
Okay. That's why. Well, that, and also the reason I think this is that one time I was in the middle of a game and someone called me and I had to answer the phone because my God, someone called me.
Yeah, ew, gross.
And then when I went back to it, like after 5 or 6 minutes, it still allowed me to continue the game, the duel.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Fair enough. So let's go beyond. Fantastic. So, after all that, I really don't have one. I've got nothing for you. I've got nothing for you. Yeah, I've got no. Oh, okay. I could say, go out and play, pick up Kingmaker, Pathfinder Kingmaker. It's a fun game, but I've spent literally hundreds of hours on it and getting like 4 hours of sleep a night. So maybe don't do that.
Yeah.
I'll let you. You're an adult. This is America. This is the internet, of which a segment is America or some other various country with more freedom. Like you choose to do with your life what you will, but like that's my Beyond the Fringe.
Okay.
How about you?
My Beyond the Fringe is like, well, I got the second round of vaccine this morning, which is cool. I woke up early, before the sun came up, which is honestly at that point I probably should have stayed up. There's that fine line that I have of, is this really early or am I just staying up late? So I took the second round of the vaccine. My arm is already sore, but I have a feeling that was due to the person giving me the shot rather than the contents of the syringe. Also, I didn't get a sticker, and I'm really annoyed about that.
Whoa.
Yeah. My colleagues were there. They all got stickers, and I didn't. I was like,
how dare he? He's the person administering the shot was not impressed with the creepy look you were giving them.
But I wasn't being creepy this time, or should I have just really?
That's right. Stab me with your life-giving inoculation, life-preserving inoculation.
I'm sure that she would have called security and had me removed from the premises.
Maybe next time you'll be nicer and you'll get a sticker.
But I was not. Anyway, whatever. So I didn't get a sticker. I'm bummed.
Okay. Sorry.
But I saw a lot of my friends there, people I work with. So that was kind of cool.
Cool.
I guess people have been lining up since like 3:30, 4 in the morning. I got there at 7:02, and I think there were about 250 people in front of me or so. But I got out within an hour, and that was cool.
All right.
So,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that concludes the pre-topic discussion convo. Let's take a quick break, come back, and we'll talk about Blood Angels then and now. Damn, I knew it was around here somewhere. Damn, where is it?
Can I help you?
Ah! Scared me.
What do you seek?
I need the perfect scenario for a narrative game I'm running this week, and I can't find one.
Sir, this is the Black Library. We don't have narrative scenarios.
Well, then where should I go?
Might I recommend the Tabletop Campaign Repo?
The Tabletop Campaign Repo? What's that?
The Tabletop Campaign Repo is an ad-free site for hosting resources related to playing tabletop miniatures wargaming.
Oh, like scenarios?
Absolutely. Also, event packs, custom objectives, tracking sheets, custom terrain rules, maps, icon packs, award templates, and more.
Oh, and this is for Warhammer 40k?
Among other things. There's also Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and others. They're always open for content submissions for any system, even non-Games Workshop materials.
Oh, that's awesome. It sounds like a great way to save all of this great content the community makes. A lot of that stuff often ends up disappearing into a dead message board or Facebook group.
Exactly. It's a real community effort.
Great. So how do I get there?
Just go to that webway gate marked tcrepo.com.
tcrepo.com. Got it. Can I ask you one more question before I go?
Fire away.
This place is really easy to find. How come Aramon can never find it?
Oh, because it's more funny that way.
Oh, yeah, clearly.
Once again, the Tabletop campaign repository can be found at tcrepo.com, and they're always looking for submissions.
Greetings, mofos.
Are you out of George Dickel number 8, staring at a broken chess machine?
Don't want to spend the rest of the year tied to that couch?
Well, why don't you head on over to the 1 Hour a Night Facebook page and see what exciting stuff is going on there. It's a place to post all your daily progress in the hobby grind, as well as receive and give positive feedback. Also, there are usually a few interesting challenges going on.
That's right. All you have to do is search for 1 Hour a Night on Facebook. That's numeral 1 hour a night, all one word. Blood serum tests will be administered prior to approval.
Se til helvete og kom dere vekk. Det er ikke en bikkje, det er en slags ting. Den imiterer en bikkje, men det er ikke det. Kom dere vekk, idioter!
What he said. Welcome back. So we're going to be talking about... the new Blood Angels Codex supplement came out recently. Not super recently. I've been holding on to this thing for quite some time. And I think we've skipped Death Watch, but we did have a Death Watch.
Yeah, we did.
Altar of War that came out like a week or two ago. So there's that one. But for Blood Angels, I kind of was interested because this is an old faction. Now, you could say, well, they're all old factions, right? But really, the Blood Angels and the Dark Angels had special rules for a long time, like a really long time. And it could have been that the Blood Angels were kind of the poster boy for 40K and not the Ultramarines.
Oh, they were. They were,
right.
Loopy.
Oh, were they?
Sorry, I keep saying Loopy. It's Adam. Yeah. So if you think about your second edition Warhammer 40,000 box, it's the Blood Angels on the front. And they were also on the cover of, I think, Epic 40,000 was Blood Angels on the cover.
Oh.
So they are, whilst the Ultramarines are sort of thought of as the poster boys these days, I'm not sure that was always true. The other thing that I think is interesting, now you mentioned the Dark Angels. So one of the things I was tasked with for this episode was going back through my old codexes, back to the ones I had when I was a kid. And the interesting connection between the Blood Angels and the Dark Angels is that they both have this dark secret that goes all the way back to Horus Heresy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, at least at that time, wasn't the case for the other chapters. Now they've expanded that history, that's maybe not so clear, but that's why there was that connection originally in that codex.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fascinating. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
That's
They kind of all, and yeah, like they have this really interesting dark flaw that runs through the chapter, but at the same time, they present themselves as they're so physically beautiful, right? They're statuesque even by Space Marine standards. They're these statuesque, perfect beings with the long, like the flowing blonde hair and pale skin and whatever. And, and the way they behave when they arrive on a planet, like they arrive on these pillars of fire, right? Like whether they're in their jump packs or their drop pods or their airplanes or whatever, they really are these descending angels come to save you from the enemies of the Imperium, right? And
that's right. And I think one of the things we'll come into later is that this sense of the aesthetic, I think, is really important for this chapter. That it's not just about what they do, it's how they do it. That for them is really important. If you think of an angel in a Renaissance painting, you won't go far wrong with the image they present, perhaps.
Well, and one must admit that the recent sculpt of Sanguinius is pretty on the nose. Like,
oh yeah, I have to say, I think it's fantastic. I must say, I think that's a wonderful model. But it does not hide its inspirations at all.
No.
It's the Archangel Michael on his way down.
But at the same time, you know, I'm not going to say that the demeanor is a veneer. It's not a veneer. I think that wouldn't be giving them credit for their actual intention is to be this exemplar of kind of the avenging angel or the defender, but there is a darkness within them, in their gene seed, or maybe not their gene seed, but there's something about them that they're hiding, and it's almost like, you know, they doth protest too much sometimes.
Oh, that's certainly true. There's a fantastic quote that I've just got the third edition Codex open in front of me. I'm sure this appears elsewhere as well. Here we go. Say what you like. I will not fight alongside these madmen. The past proves nothing except that the Blood Angels are cursed and but a single step from damnation. That's Brother Captain Euron of the Patriarchs of Elixir's chapter. So the mask has slipped, and it has slipped for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love about them, this darkness and madness to them too.
Right, but that, you know, and I think that's what would have made them the perfect, like, you know, going forward, it would have made them a perfect example of Space Marines, because, you know, in the 40th millennium, with the Imperium the way it is, like having this beautiful exterior with kind of a rotting core, I think that better represents the setting than the calculating Ultramarines, personally, from my perspective.
I entirely agree. I think probably the reason they don't is as much I think it's a better representation of the setting. I think that if you're trying to understand what a Space Marine in the setting more generally is, the Ultramarines are maybe, frankly, they're more generic. I know the Ultramarines players will be out for blood now, but I think because the Blood Angels are that bit, they have that deviancy to them.
Right.
That pulls them away from the sort of exemplar. But I do agree with you that I think if you want to represent the setting and the hollowness of the facade the Imperium presents, I think the Blood Angels are a much better example.
That makes a lot of sense. Like using the Ultramarines as an exemplar of Space Marines, but the Blood Angels as a better fit for this setting. I think that's a good compromise on opinion there. That's a good point. So the Blood Angels are created, like, so there's this weird dichotomy here too, where the Blood Angels are created from this gene scarred stock of individuals from Baal Secundus. They live in this rad wasteland. When was Baal Secundus nuked, John?
And so that's a good question. So according to the second edition Codex, it was the end of the Dark Age of technology. The moons of Baal were destroyed. We don't really know too much about what happened, beyond that the Age of Strife was a very bad time, and the people who are there now, some of them are really no longer human, and those that are the ones the Blood Angels draw from, but they're inhabiting a rad wasteland. They do not look like the angels of legend.
And you know, this is I don't want to harp too much on the whole, you know, vampire thing, which it's easy to do, but it is kind of like that, where in several vampire fiction, sometimes the vampires will pick from these underserved stock to give them the gift, and this transformation from just I think maybe the authors of these stories just love the idea of, it's just a good narrative hook for kind of the most wretched of society being given this incredible gift, and they transform into something beautiful. And that's really what happens here. Like these folks live just the harshest life, and they are absolutely, they're physically very badly genetically scarred by Baal Secundus and the conditions there. But they get stuck in a coffin for a year or whatever, and they come out as Space Marines. And the most beautiful and perfect examples of an avenging angel you could possibly ask for. There's something to that.
I think that's that aesthetic beauty we were talking about before, and the sense of hope. That's where, in some ways, the hope that the Blood Angels offer is a very aesthetic one. Maybe I will be lifted up and become an angel from this wretched stock. Maybe the angels will descend on their wings and deliver us from the foes of the Emperor. This is sort of the imagery that's at the heart of the chapter. And we know that as well that there is this flaw there, and that there, maybe this perfection is to an extent an image, but they try to live up to it, I think.
And this reminds me of I've only read one Blood Angels novel, and that's the Devastation of Baal. And towards the end, one of the characters, his son is actually accepted as a initiate, and he's actually got some severe physical brain ailment that the Space Marine says, well, no, he's super brave and he's super loyal. That's really all we care about. We can fix the abnormality in his brain. That's no big deal. It's their conviction and stuff that really matters. And I thought that was probably one of the best moments of that book. Like, I could skim right past the whole Dante fighting a Norn Queen or whatever the hell he fought, but that part was really awesome. And that's exactly the kind of thing I think Space Marines are looking for in someone. The physical attributes can be fixed. They can be ameliorated by the blood of Sanguinius. It's the Space Marine organs. It's the person's actual conviction and their mental state that you need to overcome some of this darkness. So
I think that's certainly one interpretation of it. I think the other is that they're only really caring about certain aspects of your personality, because the rest of it will probably be wiped out anyway. I've always really seen the Space Marines as pretty horrific. I have to say. So yeah, no, I think that's actually quite a good example of that if you read it a different way.
And it's really a weird thread in the Blood Angels too. Like, it's way beyond indoctrination, as we'll find out. There's almost like they're almost like making cookie cutter Sanguiniuses to fight. It's really interesting.
So then, this is kind of interesting. At least I find this fascinating, and it's kind of poetic that the Blood Angels are fashioned from these withered remains, these mutants, these genetically scarred humans. But after being shoved in the coffin and going through this, genetic sculpting, tempering, they become this chiseled exemplar of superhuman beauty and strength. And that's, quite fascinating. But the thing I find a little more fascinating is that the Blood Angels then become these artisans just as much as they are warriors. And there's a lot of overlap between those two. Their armor, weapons, and vehicles often feature, exquisite decoration of many varieties. The Blood Angels are known to go through great and deadly lengths to acquire the materials they need for seemingly pointless embellishments. God, they almost sound like blood ravens there. Sorry. These
Well, they make
activities
their
are,
own. They don't steal them.
well, whatever. Steal, borrow, make your own, whatever. These activities are far from pointless because they keep the Blood Angels' minds focused. So pursuits such as painting and sculpting, designing, sewing, and other artistic pursuits are kind of a meditation for the otherwise bloodthirsty mind of a Blood Angel. This has been proven. The Blood Angel successors, the Angels Penitent, who I need to probably read a little bit more about, their chaplains forbade the...
Those guys rule.
Good. I have to look them up because I'm not familiar with... one of the things we're going to find out very quickly is I'm not very familiar with the Blood Angels.
They might be a Primaris chapter. I forget. They're in the lower right-hand corner here of the successors. And I'm not sure if that means they're created by... I think those ones are ones that were created by GW employees, like random employees, not the rules, not the writers. But yeah, anyways, go ahead.
I'll have to check them out. Anyways, their chaplains forbade the expression of the arts and other creative pursuits in lieu of simple self-flagellation. Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not going to be interested in them after all. But the ranks of their death company have skyrocketed as a result from beating themselves to death. Yeah.
So this is a really interesting point. They are using basket weaving as a way of maintaining control over the Black Rage.
Well, that makes a certain amount of sense.
It really does. It really does.
Well, when we're going to talk about...
And the other thing is, of course, they're very long-lived. This is one of the other features of the Blood Angels that's very unusual, is that even for Space Marines, they live a very long time.
Yeah.
So the current chapter master he was a legend before Lysander got himself lost in the war. So he's been serving the Emperor for over 1,000 years, which means that as well they have an awful lot of time on their hands, frankly, to do this artwork. So if you've lived 1,000 years, you do have time to carefully write the words of Sanguinius and filigree gold all over your suit of armor. So what else are you going to do while you're resting, insofar as Space Marines rest?
I love the fact that they use this as a way to compartmentalize their day or their week or the campaign that they've just been on and kind of gain control over the darkness within them. I think that's really neat, and it adds something. And there's rules later on. One of the examples of rules going in later on in the episode I picked reflects this. So that brings us to why they do all this basket weaving. And this is kind of the main, this is the thing that, as John was saying, this is kind of what made them somewhat unique in the past. And still, the way it manifests is still also very unique, in my opinion. Not only the way it manifests, but the perceived reasons why it exists. For most Space Marines, we'll get into that in a second. Let's talk about what it is. All right. First of all, we've got it's the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. The Red Thirst, from what I understand, like I've read these passages a few times, and I've always been kind of confused about which is which. And there's certainly seems to be a lot of overlap between the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. And they're certainly kind of connected. So the Red Thirst is like this state of mind that the Blood Angel can enter when they're in battle, when they're kind of the scent of blood is on their noses. It's this bloodlust that has all but proven to be not only figurative but literal in nature. Like there can't be any argument really at this point. Like they actually do want to consume the blood. Now it can happen in the heat of the moment, but sometimes, and there's actually a person there's like a honorific for someone who does this. Sometimes commanders will actually intentionally spark the red thirst in their charges. Like they'll actually intentionally bring it forth, kind of like sometimes the space wolves encourage the wolfen to come to the fore.
Yeah, and I think it is also worth mentioning that it is frequently heavily implied in the codexes throughout the years that this is quite literally a thirst for blood. It's not. It's not just their thirst for battle. It's really a thirst for blood. So here's a paragraph that's in the second edition codex. Okay. It's also almost word for word in the current supplement.
Okay.
There have been instances when the Blood Angels have been stationed on distant worlds where members of the local population have gone missing, only to turn up later drained of blood. It's possible that this is the work of cultists seeking to discredit the chapter. It may even be that some of the more superstitious local citizens have taken to offering up sacrifices to their godlike visitors. It may also be possible that these folk have been killed by Blood Angels overcome by the Red Thirst.
Yeah, that is actually the same passage. The same passage is word for word in the new codex. I remember that now.
Yep.
That's funny.
So this is the thing, though. When Adam says earlier, this is one of the really old chapters in the background. The background itself is actually incredibly consistent.
Mm-hmm.
There's, as I go through the sort of the supplement that just came out and books that came out 25 years ago, you will often find almost the same text used in there. And I think that's because it was really great the first time around. And if it's not broke, why fix it?
Mm-hmm. Now, you also have...
What's amusing me,
go ahead.
Real quick, is, we pick a chapter later on in the episode. I picked the Blood Drinkers.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear this. It's just, reinforcing what I'm going to say for the Blood Drinkers. Okay, keep going.
Cool.
Yeah, so I was going to say, so we're going to come on to the other aspects right next, if I'm following the show notes correctly. But the thing that I think is sometimes a bit unclear is how the Red Thirst relates to the Black Rage.
Yeah.
And in some places it's implied that the Red Thirst and this desire to consume blood is the sort of end point of the Black Rage.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in others, it's sort of suggested that the Red Thirst is a thing and the Black Rage is a thing, but they're not so related to each other. For example, the fate of those unfortunates completely overtaken by the Red Thirst is known only to the chapter itself. There are tales of a secret chamber atop the tower of Amereo and Baal, and of howling cries that demand the blood of the living, but none are willing to say for certain what secrets lie hidden in this haunted, desolate place. So that really suggests that the desire to drink blood is the sort of end stage of this situation. Right. Whereas in other places, I think it is the other way around.
Yeah. It's, now that I think of it, now that my mind is somewhat lubricated by the Adirondack Brewery Lake George IPA, I think it's possible that the Red Thirst is a genetic default, is actually a genetic default.
Yes.
But the Black Rage is clearly a psychic link with Sanguinius. All those memories, all those, all that madness. I think that is not in any way a genetic situation. I think that's definitely a psychic thing. And, you could, so that means the Blood Angels have two outcomes. Either you live long enough to fall to the Red Thirst, or you live long enough to fall to the Black Rage. You pick your poison.
Yep, absolutely. And the other possibility is that, so you talk of it as being truly a genetic mutation. The other possible explanation is that it comes from the process of making a Blood Angel, because one of the key aspects of the early history of the Space Marine Legions is that whilst there was a link to the genetic material of the Primarch in the new Space Marines that were created, there was no fixed way to turn a human being into a Space Marine and activate the gene seed. So all of the chapters use completely different methods to do it. And the Blood Angels use insanguination, which is the process by which they originally drank the blood of Sanguinius himself, And later, the way it works is that the sanguinary priests carry what remains of the living blood of Sanguinius in their veins in some manner, that they all effectively injected it into themselves after the death of Sanguinius, so that this process could continue.
Yes.
And the way they trigger the gene seed in the Blood Angels chapter is that the sanguinary priests will put their own blood into the red chalice, and they will all drink of it. So the drinking of blood is fundamental to the creation of a blood angel. And it may be that that's not a very good process, or it has some flaws anyway.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was
so
like.
That
like
to me suggests it's a different thing to the Black Rage.
I think it is, and I think my nerd brain really appreciates, the core pseudo-sciencey explanations of it. Like the Blood Angels have like this overactive, what is it, homophagia, which is that organ that they use to get the memories of creatures by consuming them. So, and it's almost a narcotic effect for them. So the more they do it, the more they want to do it, and the more they have to do it. And they pine for the time when they can do it. They don't need it for sustenance. They just want to do it. And
I'm really interested in this. So where did you find this one? Because
that is in the new rule book. That's in the new rule book.
Is it?
Yeah,
okay.
I saw that in there.
Okay.
But
because
that's just
the
one
reason that's interesting is that we'll come on to this with the Black Rage, but memories from things you've ingested has an interesting overlap with what we're about to talk next.
Exactly.
They drink the blood of Sanguinius to
exactly. That's how they get the memories of Sanguinius, because their homophagia is able to interpret those memories so much better than in other Space Marines. They actually can get that psychic imprint from the blood, and that's probably you're absolutely right when you say that's probably not the best way to go about doing this process, because Sanguinius's blood, it is in every sanguinary priest, and everybody drinks from it. Anyways,
that's an interesting one.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It never occurred to me to think of it that way, right? But as you say, that's kind of always been in the lore. But that one little connection, like, oh yeah, if you eat the flesh or drink the blood of another creature, you get its memories, obviously. So there was just that one little connection. Now let's move on to this section here where we talk about this Tower of Amareo, Jason.
Okay,
I think we're missing a section, guys. I think we want to talk about the Black Rage next.
Oh, yep. Sorry, my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got it. All right, so the Black Rage is a permanent affliction, which spells the end of any Blood Angel who is affected by it. When a Blood Angel succumbs to the Black Rage, they are mentally transported to the final days of the Horus Heresy, because, that's a happy time, right?
Yeah.
And some even believe they are Sanguinius himself fighting to his ultimate end. Blood Angels are so afflicted, are inducted into the Death Company and are prodded on to their final battle to die an honorable death. If no battle is forthcoming, the afflicted Space Marine is tied down and monitored so that their ravings can be recorded and corroborated with others. There is a confusing passage in the Codex which states that some Blood Angels who fall to the Black Rage cannot be put down for whatever reason and eventually succumb to the Black Rage and are locked up in the Tower of Amareo on Baal. I'm not sure why they can't be put down at all, or if this is just a place where the Death Company are held for the next go at absolution. Astraf the Grim seems to be the only one who can do it. It might be because Space Marines can't fathom the idea of killing one of their own, and the Horus Heresy has heightened this distaste. At any rate, this tower was emptied during the devastation of Baal, and the badly mutated prisoners ripped into the Tyranids with tooth and claw until they were overwhelmed.
Yeah,
so,
I think it's possible that it helps that we've kind of made this little distinction between falling to the Black Rage and falling to the
Red Thirst.
Red Thirst, right?
Yeah.
And part of why the Horus Heresy was so unfathomable is because Space Marines are kind of genetically predisposed to not killing one another. So I'm guessing that's why they need Astorath to do it for them.
Okay.
John, do you have
Yeah, I
anything?
mean, this is one of those things that I think this honestly comes down to how the lore has changed over the years.
Uh-huh.
So Astaroth the Grim is listed as the High Chaplain of the Blood Angels only in the 5th edition Codex.
Mm-hmm.
In the 3rd edition one, it's actually Lamartes, who's listed as, and we'll come on to him later a bit, but he's actually listed as the High Chaplain of the Blood Angels. And so, whereas the Tower of Amareo shows up even earlier, that's in the 2nd edition Codex. So I suspect what's happened is that they've wound up with a retrospective lore conflict when they bring in the character of Astaroth the Grim, whose duty is to execute, or one of his duties is to execute Blood Angels who have formed the Black Rage and have survived. However, there's still this tower that is full of Blood Angels who've fallen to the Black Rage. So I think what you could say is that it's essentially where they keep them until Astaroth can dispense his duty because it's considered his duty alone.
Right.
That's the explanation that makes a lot of sense to me.
Right.
One of the other features of Astaroth's lore is that even though he's a High Chaplain of specifically the Blood Angels chapter, he roams away from the chapter because he's drawn to locations where the Black Rage seems to be consuming Blood Angel successors. So he will actually also appear alongside other chapters of Blood Angel successors when they have a major outbreak of the Black Rage.
Yeah,
So that is why he would not be able to do that on a regular basis. Now, what's also interesting here is, so I'll be honest, haven't read The Devastation of Baal, and I really didn't enjoy that entire narrative with the Blood Angels and the Tyranids. It just, for whatever reason, didn't work for me, so I haven't read it. But what I think is fascinating about what you just said is you refer to the prisoners as being badly mutated and ripping into Tyranids with tooth and claw. So that really sounds like a sort of end game for the Red Thirst to me.
Yes, that sounds more like Red Thirst to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So that sounds to me like what's maybe happened. This is, my theory crafting here now. We're off the beaten track. Is that by falling to Black Rage, they just can't control the Red Thirst anymore. And so they go down this sort of mutated. They start to mutate. Effectively, they just completely lose control of it.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I think that's a bit of a shame because that sounds so similar to the lore for the Wolfen.
Yeah, it does.
I'd almost rather they hadn't done it. I have to say, I don't think that's.
Yeah. There's there's even a comic book out there, like a GW comic book that shows like a Blood Angel staring into his own face as a creature fallen to the Red Thirst, and it does remind me very much. It's like he's still humanoid, but very mutated into some kind of horrible flesh-eating beast. Yeah, but everybody listening, it's your game. You decide for your army what you want it to be. If you like the idea of becoming a blood crazed monster, then go ahead and model that up on your models. If you don't, then ignore it. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's worth saying, like, I think that one of the most brilliant things about this hobby is that there's so many different ways to enjoy it. So I've always been more into the painting side, the collecting side. I love the way that Forge World writes their background. I like the codexes. I've never gotten with Black Library. But if someone is listening is like, well, I love those books, good for you. Like, there's so many ways to enjoy this. I think it's fantastic. So do it how you like it.
Absolutely. And that's always been our motto, man. Play the game the way you want to, or engage in the hobby the way you want to. And that's everybody should kind of espouse that philosophy, because the more you accept people's individual ways of engaging in the hobby, the more people will want to be in the hobby. And the healthier the hobby, the more cool models we get. So
That's right.
So we talked at length kind of about the reasons for the flaw. Now there are some, there's a lot of theories out there at like in game as well as, what people personally think. It could be that the Emperor messed up, which let's be honest, we don't, the people in the Imperium would balk at that. So this was on purpose. Maybe we would balk at that too. But, looking at some of these first founding chapters, you start to wonder if the Emperor really cared whether there were genetic flaws that would start cropping up later. Because I honestly don't think the Emperor was expecting the Space Marines to last much longer. Like, maybe the Ultramarines would persist as a kind of as a defensive force, but I honestly think he expected all the Space Marines to be dead after a while, after reconquering the galaxy, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's heavily implied in some places in the Horus Heresy Black Books.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. So again, like, I don't tend to read the novels, but I devour the Black Books. They're brilliant. And it's fairly heavily implied in there that the sort of shifting gears after Olenor, in terms of how the Imperium's war disposition looked, with the Emperor returning to Terra with, an increasing shift towards, I don't want to say civilians, but not Space Marines on war councils, was like one of the triggers.
Infrastructure. He was focused on infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah, and that this is one of the triggers for the dissatisfaction within the ranks of some of the legions.
So that makes a lot of sense. But anyways, the flaw actually does manifest different ways for the successors. The Blood Drinkers, they feel the Black Rage very acutely, but they see it as a gift rather than a hindrance. They have this flawed muconoid gland that causes their skin to become non-porous and dry to the touch, like parchment. The Flesh Terrors and the Angels of Vermilion, they embrace the violence brought by the Red Thirst. Some, such as the Flesh Eaters, are less than subtle about their obsession with the consumption of mortal flesh. Like, it's actually like ritualized in their culture. Other successors have more weird traits. The Lamenters are probably the weirdest, in my opinion. They seem to be cursed with this supernatural bad luck.
Yeah, they're from a cursed founding too.
Yeah, so they are. Like a cursed founding of the Blood Angels.
I think, was it the 13th founding or the 26th? I can't remember. Either way. There's two that had a really bad time.
Yeah, it's really fun. And that's why, my orcs, I try to write the Lamenters into that as much as possible. Like, whenever I have a new orc vehicle, because my orcs are yellow and blue, like, they're already painted yellow. Let's go get those. So one time, one of them, like the lore for my Markanaut, or one of my Gorkanauts, I actually bought a repulsor. And I'm like, well, I already have a repulsor. I might as well make a Gorkanaut out of it. So I painted it yellow, and I said, well, let's say that the orcs or the Lamenters had finally gotten Primaris reinforcements. Oh, thank the Emperor. We finally got reinforcements. Let's go out into the galaxy and make a difference. And then the orcs come and steal all their stuff.
I like to think it was just shipped to a different planet. So they were in, I don't know, they were in one system. Like, they were in the, I don't know, let's think of one, the Galaxia system. And it got sent to the Talaxia system instead. And so there's just this pile of repulsors in the Lamenter's library just sat on the moon there, because the Mechanicus did not say, well, it says to put them here, so that's what we're going to do. It seems like a rock to me. And the orcs said, brilliant, look at this. What's this do?
Thanks for the free stuff.
Perfect. That's what happened. That's what happened.
I have rewritten. So I have now rewritten the lore. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's where your Thunderhawk came from as well, I believe.
Oh no, we stole that. We stole that from the Blood Ravens. who
we do
had
have
stole,
lore.
the Blood Ravens stole it from the Ultramarines, and I'm sorry, they salvaged
Acquired
it. Salvaged it from a world where it crashed, and we stole it from the Blood Ravens. So but the lore for my Gorkanaut is now changed. That is glorious. All right, you want to talk about the Primaris Blood Ravens?
Yeah,
Jason?
I'll go ahead. So it was originally believed that the flaw would not be present in the Primaris Space Marines. This was proven to be quite false because, it's 40k, nothing's ever happy. And this might have been, either due to the insanguination or the original flaw, or one by one, Primaris Marines fell to the Black Rage.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Astaroth smelled the taint on them the moment he saw them, but he chose to let his brothers experience their disappointment firsthand.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, these guys are going to fall to the Black Rage, but I'll let you guys, you won't believe me anyways. Just watch what happens. I'll give you your moment of hope. Won't that be nice to have that hope?
Honestly, I've let people do that.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay,
cool.
So the next one up, I'm glad I got this, is only the chapter's chief librarian, Mephiston, has returned from the Black Rage. Lamartes, Guardian of the Lost and Chaplain of the Death Company, is currently experiencing the Black Rage, though through sheer force of will. He has kept the madness at check and is placed in stasis between battles to maintain him for as long as he can keep his wits.
Yeah.
Wow. I did not know that about Lamartes.
Yeah. I thought he came back from the Black Rage too, but in fact, he's actually in the Black Rage.
He's in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the Guardian of the Lost because he leads them all into battle. He does it again and again and again because he's having all these intrusive visions of 10,000 years ago pressing into his mind, and he has to constantly force them out for long enough to lead his brothers to a noble death. I think he's a wonderful character. And the other thing I would say about Mephiston returning from the Black Rage is, so there's actually, here's a nugget for you. There's actually a pre-Black Rage Mephiston model. Space Hulk 2009 has a brother Calistarius, and that is Mephiston before he fell to the Black Rage. And he fell to the Black Rage, I think it was Hive Tempestora on Armageddon, in the Second War for Armageddon, which is an absolute gold mine for Blood Angels lore. If you want to read about why you should love the Blood Angels, I really recommend going on Lexicana or somewhere like that and reading about the Second War for Armageddon. A lot of the characters come from there, including Tycho, who I think we're going to maybe gloss over for this episode, but he's another fascinating character. He's one of the very few characters who has a model and is dead.
Nice.
But Mephiston was, Calistarius, as he was then, fell to the Black Rage. He was a librarian. He was trapped under a collapsed building at a hive on Armageddon. I think it was Tempestora. And he is trapped under the rubble of this building for a week, battling the Black Rage. And then on the seventh day, he breaks out and he's reborn as Mephiston, the Lord of Death. And by conquering the Black Rage, he sort of taps into all the psychic powers. So he's one of the most powerful psychics in the Imperium at this point. Very powerful psyker.
Trivia point, Calistarius is the librarian from where?
Space Hulk 2009. So the librarian model from there. So that's Mephiston before the Black Rage. Yep.
Do you think that Lamartes kind of like sometimes is like your weird uncle who if somebody looks like somebody else who's dead, like they'll call him that? Like, do you think he looks at the Sanguinor and just calls him Escallion? Like, oh, hey, Escallion, welcome back. Hey, man, thanks for helping us out. Like, he's just so muddled. Sorry.
That's a great point, and it never occurred to me. But actually, I can imagine it must be a real trip,
right?
Talking to Lamartes when he's simultaneously existing in the present and his mind is sort of 10,000 years in the past.
Yeah.
And he's just looking at your Storm Raven like, that's a really weird looking Storm Eagle.
Right, exactly.
What's that thing on top?
Why would you put a turret on an airplane? You people are idiots.
He's the only person in the Imperium. That's how far gone they all are. He's the only person in the Imperium who can look at the Storm Raven and say, "There's no way that will fly."
Right. Well, that's one of the cool things, right? Like, I think I skimmed over this earlier. Like, they actually have people whose job it is to look at somebody. If somebody's in the throes of the Black Rage, but they can't be executed right away, or there's no battles for them to fight, they actually sit there and they take notes on the random nonsense that they say, and that gives that gives them an insight into the past. That's really cool.
Yeah.
In Death of Integrity, they actually kind of touch on this as well, because that book's come out for a while, so I'm not going to put a spoiler on that. But the chapter master for the Blood Drinkers was, if I remember correctly, was going through the Black Rage, and they were basically ushering him through this Space Hulk to just let him loose on something. Yeah, it's part of the Black Rage. But they do talk about, like they're kind of notating what he's doing and saying. So. Mm-hmm.
I did want to touch on, again, in the Codex, they talk about one of the they have, in these new codexes, they give you new war zones where things are happening. There's a war zone that they're participating in called Akrabajar, I think.
Okay.
Anyways,
it says Akrabellar on this page here that I've got.
Akrabellar, yeah, probably. Anyways, they engage in direct propaganda with the population, and they kind of say that it's in order to get their spirits up, to let them know that the Imperium hasn't abandoned them. Hearts and minds are important. They're very important, especially when you realize that faith is a weapon, which we learned from the Pariah Nexus. Like, faith is actually a powerful defense mechanism in a world where the warp is a thing. The warp is a manifestation of is capable of harnessing a manifestation of human emotion. At the same time, I do see it as more window dressing for the Blood Angels. We are your angelic saviors, But, okay. So this book, unlike the Space Wolves book, which we were a little disappointed about, I'll be honest.
Well,
we were a little disappointed in the Force Organization portion of that book. Like where they talked, or they failed to talk about how the Space Wolves are organized. This actually at least gives us a page to talk about how the Blood Angels organize the chapter.
And so was this the ordering of the host, right?
Yes, the ordering of the host section.
So this helps describe the Blood Angels' order of battle. And it looks a lot like every other Space Marine chapter. The first company is still veteran chapter, or veteran company. The 2nd through 5th are still battle companies, and the 10th is still a scout company. The reserve company types have been renamed to reflect, man, I hate saying his name, Gilliman. I just want to call him Robo G. To reflect Gilliman's adjustments to the Codex Astartes. Mm-hmm. The 5th and 7th are now battle line companies. 8th is now close support, and the 8th is fire support. Wait a minute, that must be a typo.
9th.
That is a typo.
9th is fire support.
9th is fire support.
Got it.
But they do still have a scout company, which is interesting.
Yeah, they still use scouts. Well, even so, they don't put the Primaris organs in until after the whole scout thing. And actually, some Space Marines
follow that. Okay.
Some Space Marines still, the end result is Firstborn. Not every Space Marine ends up. Yeah, not every Space Marine ends up as Primaris. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. That does.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's true. I'm not sure if that's going to change in the future, but that's I couldn't give you a page reference, but it's true.
Okay.
Hmm.
Let me see. So basically, although they've been renamed and equipped somewhat differently, they still serve largely the same roles as before.
Yeah.
Commander Dante is still Chapter Master and now Regent and Warden of the Imperial Nihilus.
Yep.
He is aided by a council consisting of the chapter's highest-ranking captains, librarians, sanguinary priests, and other who lead companies of space marines. New chapter masters are appointed by the wisest chaplains and sanguinary priests of the chapter, known as the Council of Blood and Bone. Ooh.
Fascinating. So we do have the same kind of honorifics. Well, many of the same honorifics as a Space Marine chapter. Now, like the companies all have someone, like, for example, like one company has the Master of the Fleet as the company master of it. But the Blood Ravens, or sorry, Blood Ravens, the Blood Angels have, Blood Angel honorifics are somewhat different. Now, if you read some of the novels, there is a lot of ritual that goes on behind closed doors. And again, I would almost think that it's partially to allow the Blood Angels to compartmentalize things, and reorganize their minds to stave off the Red Thirst. Although, having said that, there's a lot of ritual in other Space Marine chapters too.
Well, I mean, the other thing to remember is that, and so this comes back to one of the things I just love about the background for Warhammer 40,000, and particularly chapters like the Blood Angels, is this is an institution that has existed for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, try and think about that in terms of a modern reference point. So in the UK, we have universities that are maybe 1,000 years old. There's some that are slightly older than that in Italy, or 900 years old. We don't have even the slightest reference for just how long ago that is that all this happened. So these rituals may have been something totally different, maybe even 4,000 years ago. These things will have evolved and changed and developed over time and shifted completely in meaning. So where they might once have had a genuine, serious purpose, it may be completely something different now. I really think this is one of the important things about the aesthetic of Warhammer 40,000 as a whole, is that people do things because they have done them for the last X thousand years, not because there's a reason to do them. So, when you talk about, it's to do this or to do that, it may not be for anything at all.
No. And it's a lot of these things are symbolic. You talk about, 1,000-year-old institution, like even in the United States where everything is a baby, basically, compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
For example, in our election process, our Congress is required by law to vote on the incumbent president, and they're required to accept that the result of the election. Why is that? It's because they have this kind of ceremonial mock vote, because it's the people who have the power. Ultimately, they have the power, not their legislators or the Senate. The people have the power. So there's like this weird ceremonial law that requires that Congress accept that vote. And there's they do it in a day. It's not a big deal, but it's largely ceremonial. So, and we're only a 250-year-old country. Imagine a 10,000-year-old institution, right? So
yeah, and I think that's one of the. So actually, I want to make a quick segue here to say that. So I mean, I own every Blood Angels Codex Games Workshop has produced. I think this one has the best art by a long way. one of the best of those is, for those of you that have it, pages 24 and 25, the page about Captain Tycho. And it has the Blood Angels all in a parade on Baal below it. And it's just the most amazing image. And it really gives you that sense of age and the sort of aesthetic power of Warhammer 40,000 updated into what this is quite a new style for them. This actually quite almost delicate style, whereas the earlier art tends to be much blockier. I think it's fantastic. I really do. So Games Workshop, on the off chance you're listening, well done. This is great.
I was quite stricken by this layout as well, John. The Captain Tycho page. And it speaks to what we're kind of talking about. Let me describe this. It's a 2-page spread of Captain Tycho, and it's got the Space Marines all arrayed in the foreground. And I would say that they're about maybe 10% of the height of the page. And then above them, they're filling the rest of the right-hand page is a massive statue, like stories tall, tens of stories tall. And the implication is that they have erected this massive construct in the image of Captain Tycho himself. And he's a named character in the book. He's been around for 1,000 years.
Oh, Tycho, no, he's much younger than that. He's not quite as old as that. But he dies on... Dante's the Ancient One. Tycho dies at the Third War of Armageddon.
Right.
He was rumored to be Dante's chosen successor. And so he was a great loss for the chapter. But one of the things I like about this is, we don't know that this is Tycho. It doesn't have a little nameplate saying it's him.
On the page.
But imagine that, So it's heavily implied, right? But now imagine what the Archangelicum must look like. If they will do this for one captain. Okay, there's not many captains. There's 10 of them.
Yeah.
But this is a 10,000-year-old institution. There have been a lot of captains of the Blood Angels. Probably not all of them have a statue like this. But just imagine what it must look like.
Yeah.
Imagine it. Think about, I don't know, a cathedral nowadays and how ornate they can seem. I mean, this would just be to a completely different scale. It's just, I know, I think it's absolutely insane and I love it.
Yeah. No, good point. Like, bringing up that page was a good point because it really does show, like, even the more recent stuff in 40K is ancient by our standards.
Yeah.
Christ, where was I? Okay, so
sorry, I completely derailed that one.
No, it's totally fine. The honorifics, we have the Master of the Fleet, and stuff like that. But we also have the Blood Angels one. One is Shield of Baal. They protect the homeworld. The Lord of Skyfall. Apparently, there's a giant space station called Skyfall in the Baal system, which is fashioned from it's in the shape of an angel riding a globe. I'd like to see a picture.
Yeah, I have to admit that was news to me. So that's the captain of the 8th company. So the Shield of Baal is the captain of the 1st company.
The fleet
Skyfall is the 8th company. So I always assumed it was more literal than that. That it was like falling out of the sky. The assault company captain is going to be the guy dropping everyone out of spaceships on jump packs and things. So I always thought it was just much more literal than that. But yeah, the space station called Skyfall, I have to admit, was news to me in this codex. I think
that's really
got that James Bond call there.
Yeah, like it literally says an angel astride a globe. Like he's riding the globe?
Yeah, it just sounds like an exercise ball to me. And I'm not sure that's an image that I really want here.
Or a birthing ball, like for expecting mothers. Like, what's going on there? So we also have...
I think that, unlike the previous one, that visual, I'm not sure it's a winner.
I don't think so either. The Caller of the Fires, who is a crazy mother who... when did I write these notes? I must have been tired. They're in charge of getting the blood of the angels to harness their flaw. The blood angels harness their flaw in a safe way. That's what it kind of says in the book. Like, is there a safe way to get the red thirst to manifest in a Blood Angel? I don't know. I'm not sure which company they're in charge of, if they're in charge of any company at all.
I was just looking that up.
Master of Sacrifice keeps the record of the dead, and the Lord Adjudicator. Obviously, they are the kind of. I assume that's like a head chaplain type situation.
It is not. That's the captain of the fourth company. That's my boy. That's Captain Castigon.
Oh, that's a
I think he's dead now, actually. But he's yeah. So my Blood Angels are all the fourth company.
Oh, okay.
And so I have a Captain Castigon model, and he would be the Lord Adjudicator.
Does he have an axe for chopping heads off?
No, he does not. He has a hammer. He's the Blood Angels captain, but he has an Inferno pistol and no jump pack. And that's I have two versions of him. One is a really generic Smash captain, and the other is this one. And I made two versions because Smash captains are really boring. Really boring.
Well, I mean, I always in the Firstborn times, my chapter, I actually did have multiple versions of some characters depending on war gear. I would literally make like 2 or 3 models, put the same name on the base, but they're just war gear's a little different. Why not, right? That happens in the books.
Yeah. So I found out who the Caller of the Fires is. That's the 6th company captain.
So that's a battle company as well, right? Or is that a reserve battle line?
That's a reserve company.
Okay, battle line.
I would call it a tactical company. I think they're now a battle line company.
Yep. They're the same, right? They just changed the name for some reason. Because
changed the name, yeah.
You know what? If you work in government,
Devastator because they're too generic.
Yeah, if you work in government like me, you know that managers love changing the names of things for no reason. They just love spending millions of dollars on changing a name. I see Guilliman doing that. He definitely would change the name of something for no reason.
If anyone is a it is. If anyone has a manager vibe, it's Roberta Guilliman, I would say.
Absolutely. Let's rebrand this, and people will understand it better.
Yeah, and let's do it again because you don't seem to have got it yet.
We have the Lord Adjudicator, like we just said, and the Master of Sieges, who I assume is the 9th Company Master.
Correct. Yep.
Awesome. So, I think it's really cool and thematic to have these different honorifics. And anybody who's making their own chapter should consider this as a way of adding additional flavor to their army, I think.
100%. The other thing I would mention here as well while we're on the subject is that also the companies are named. So I won't go through them all, but the most famous one is the first company, who are called the Archangels. You also have my company, the 4th company, is the Knights of Baal. The 7th company, taking one at random, is the Unconquerables. They all have names like this. I won't go through them all, but that's another great way you can add character to your army, whether it's Blood Angels or anything else. Is they're not just the 3rd company; they're the blah blah blah, storied in history.
Yeah,
you make it; it's yours. I think that's brilliant.
That is awesome.
However, I'm also lazy and I just use what they used here. So,
well, I mean, there is something to that, right? Like if I do another Space Marine chapter, it's definitely going to be one that exists in the lore because I'm done. With all of that. Okay. So, John, you had a note about the Death Mask of Sanguinius.
Yes. This, either I've put it in the wrong place, which is very likely because I was doing this quite late last night after 4 beers, or one of you two has moved it. This is actually a reference to Commander Dante.
Oh, okay.
So just a couple of very brief notes while I brought it up anyway. The first thing to say about his war gear is he wears the Death Mask of Sanguinius into battle, which is really, really cool. So when he goes to war, he has literally the face of a Primarch on his face, this sort of golden death mask of Sanguinius, which almost sort of comes to life and has this flicker of energy playing around his head as he does it, and it's in it's frozen in this Richter scream of rage. And I think that's awesome. So you'll see a lot of conversions of Dante because his model is really, really, really old now. And they all have very impassive faces because people tend to use either Stormcast Eternals or Sanguinary Guard. I'd like to encourage people to like try and get that rage onto that face because I think that's just brilliant, really exciting. The other thing is his fusion pistol used to be a unique item. And it's only about 5th edition, I think, when that changes, and they bring in fusion pistols for everyone. But when he first came out, that was a unique item dating back to the Dark Age of technology. It was the only sort of melt pistol in the game.
That's awesome. You know, when you bring up the Rictus scream of Sanguinius, a lot of the art you see is from that John Blanche piece of the Emperor versus Horus. And Sanguinius is kind of this placid corpse on the ground, and he kind of invokes a little bit of pity, but that's probably not what he looked like when he was dying. I wonder if the implication is that at the very end, Sanguinius himself was wrapped up in the red thirst.
I'd never thought of that. That's an interesting one.
That is interesting. So let's talk briefly. Maybe we should take a quick break before we move on to the next topic, so that we can have a bit of a pee and a bit of a new get a beverage and talk about how the rules reflect the lore.
Yeah, and I'm going to make another cup of tea and smash some stereotypes in the process.
A Koopa!
A cuppa, please.
All right, we'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. The Masters of the Forge is now a proud member of the NPC, the Narrative Podcast Consortium. Our aim is to inspire your hobby through the rich lore of the 41st millennium. If you enjoy our podcast, then make sure to check out these other awesome shows, where you can get coverage on campaigns, Black Library, and all kinds of general topics of the 40k background.
The NGC 40k podcast also provides in-depth campaign coverage, audio dramas, and free-flowing narrative campaign creation.
The Adeptus Terra podcast also features in-depth discussions of the lore and commentary on the hobby.
Oh, and sexy English voices.
Oh, yeah.
The Masters of the Forge brings the world of 40k to life on your tabletop, with discussion on the lore, backed up by narrative-themed rules and battle reports.
Of course, this is only a fraction of the topics covered by the podcasts of the NPC. Please tune in to find out more.
Come here, boy, get the ball. Come on, Max, get the ball. Mom, Max won't get the ball. He's lazy.
I think I know why your Zote is being lazy, Jenny.
Why, Mom?
Because you forgot to feed him his Zotobix today.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes, Zotobix contains all the nutrients and random animal parts a growing Zote craves. It not only provides our Zote with the energy it needs to play with you and protect our home, but it also keeps its chitinous shell fresh and shiny.
Oh, boy, I'd better feed Max his Zotobix.
Yes, you had.
Zotobix is made in part from grade
Max,
A
time for
Astra
dinner.
Militarum post-engagement byproduct and is infused with 112 essential vitamins
No,
and
Max,
minerals
down.
harvested from your Zote's natural habitat, the finest desert depths.
Ah!
Zotobix is available in any shopping center on worlds where Zotes are allowed or where the Imperium's inexorable influence has not yet reached.
Welcome back. We've got
cuppas. Have we all got a cuppas?
got our different
Hope you
cuppas.
two listeners have got a cuppa.
Yes.
I've got a pint, but, you know,
Good
that's
man.
because I only
I-
own pint glasses.
I
A
have
pint of tea.
a P. I have 2 fingers.
Oh, oh, so we're going to that part of the evening. All right.
Yes,
cool.
we're in that part of the evening now. So Yeah. Well, it's 2020 somewhere. No, actually, no, it's not. Not anymore.
Well, it's 2021, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't mention this in our hobby part, but I actually picked up someone has 3D printed a dumpster that has a candle in it to be like a dumpster fire. And they wrote 2020 on the side, and I'm going to mark out the last 0 with like red paint and then write in 1. Just because this seems to be what's going on.
Why not, right? Just put a little clear coat on it so you can change it at any time.
Yeah.
2022, 2023.
Oh, I was just going to keep marking it out as it went down, so it's like, a vertical line.
Okay, so in this section, we're going to talk about. We're going to kind of use our usual format where we kind of give examples instead of going through every single rule in the book. We kind of give examples of our favorite rules in the book.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to start by each of us selecting a successor chapter to talk about. Now, the Blood Angels have a lot of successor chapters. Again, they are the conceptual poster boys for 40K Space Marines. And not only that, they really want to ensure that they keep up appearances. So it's not surprising to me that they have a deep bench of successors.
Actually, that kind of shocks me, though. I mean, and this is, I guess, is a lore thing. I just, you think with the Red Thirst and with the Black Rage, that would lead to more breakdowns in the gene seed, and so.
Well, I think you're assuming that the Inquisition knows all about this. They may not.
Oh,
one of the things I think one of the things that I like about the 3rd edition Codex is there's very little of this sort of exposition in there, and it's really all sort of kind of pieced together from Inquisitors' reports and so on. And they've actually started doing this again in the most recent supplement, which I love. And so it may be, sorry for their sirens, it's exciting night in Austin, apparently. I now live in Texas, for those who are wondering about the accent and that comment. Anyway, so the Inquisition don't know the full details of the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. They have their suspicions, and depending on who you ask, they may know more or less about it. But it may be that there's not enough evidence accumulated to stop them producing from this gene seed bank.
Well, and actually, some of them are like, "How dare you? How dare you sully the reputation of the Blood Angels? They're the most loyal, the most heroic of all the Space Marines. How could you possibly believe such things?" Right?
Yeah.
But it is interesting. They would, but the Space Wolves. To your point, Jason, the Space Wolves don't. Before Primaris came out, like, they did not have any successor chapters. Like, they said, no, this causes problems. We can't do that. But the Blood Angels were like, yeah, let's do it.
Well, for Space Wolves, it was due to their gene seed flaws, and according to the Wrath of Magnus, the Thousand Suns, which, what was it? Wrath of Magnus, Battle of the Fang, all those.
Yeah.
Was it Battle of the Fang?
Partially, they actually they infiltrate the gene seed vaults and stuff like that.
A happy story.
A happy story. So, John, why don't we do yours first? Who do you have?
Okay, so I've gone with an obscure one here, and this is apparently the late Alan Blythe's own homebrew Blood Angel successor chapter.
Rest in power.
I've chosen Rest in Power. I've chosen the Charnel Guard, who I think they have such a cool name, and so that's why I went with them. The other reason is I'm a sucker for incomplete information, and so these guys show up in a few places. You can read about them in Imperial Armor 2, War Machines of the Adeptus Astartes. You can read about them in Bad Ab War Part 1. And there's also a short story about them in one of the recent White Dwarfs, which is 454, I believe.
Nice.
Okay.
Yes, it is 454. I do have that in my notes. Well done. So if you want to read a bit more about them, you can. But very little is known about this chapter. Some sources indicate that they're a third founding chapter. And one of the things that supports this is they have a relatively large number of absolutely ancient war machines in their armory.
Nice.
There's a wonderful color plate of the Mori Draka, which is a fell blade in the Channel Guard's colors in Imperial Armor 2.
Oh no.
And it is really cool. And so this idea of sort of really ancient things and not knowing when they were founded, I love this about 40k. So that's why I chose them. They're a fleet-based chapter. And their color scheme is a very, very dark. It's kind of like the Flesh Terrors, but more so. So it's almost all black with a very deep, sort of bloody reddy brown
Oh yeah.
color to it.
Oh, that is
And
cool.
Yeah. So if you got, I think the image, should be able to find the image of the Spellblade
Yup.
online without too much effort if you search for Charnel Guard, because it's one of the few images there are of them.
I'm looking
Their
at it right
logo-
now. That's cool as hell. That's a great paint scheme.
Yeah, I would honestly, like, we were talking about what would I do if I started again in 40k. I would do Primaris scaled Old Marines, and it would be Charnel Guard. That's what I would do if I could start again.
Look at the
It would be
symbol.
awesome.
Dude, that
Yeah,
symbol,
the symbol
is so
this really
cool.
ornate cross. It's an ornate black cross, almost like a fleur-de-lis on each corner,
Mhm.
with a skull in the center, and the skull
Oh,
has
yeah.
the long eye teeth of a vampire, and it's dark as hell, and I love it.
Oh, that's cool.
And they show up a few times in Imperial histories. The first time they show up is M33, so the 33rd millennium,
Mhm.
in the Pentarchy of Blood, which was convened during this mysterious event called the War of the False Primarch, which sounds like an upcoming Black Library series to me.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the High Lords of Terror declare 11 Space Marine chapters Traitoris Perdita in M33. And this organization called the Pentarchy of Blood is convened to enact judgment on them. And that's the Red Talons, the Death Eagles, the Kakaradons, the Flesh Eaters, and the Charnel Guard. And they systematically destroy these 11 Space Marine chapters. So the Charnel Guard do some dark work. You also see them turning up in what's called the Great Malagantine Purge, where billions of people were killed, apparently. Not much more is known about it. More recently, they were part of the Maelstrom Warders, which was the organization that guarded the sort of loose alliance of chapters that guarded the Maelstrom, including the Astral Claws, the Mantis Warriors, and Lamenters. The Astral Claws famously led to the Badab War and became the Red Corsairs, and I don't think the Charnel Guard played much part in that. I think they somehow someone engineered it so they weren't there anymore, maybe because they were so good at destroying other Space Marine chapters. And then there's a few other references to them. There's one reference in Imperial Armor of them having a very large number of Fire Raptors and Storm Eagles, which again speaks to being a very ancient chapter.
Yeah.
They're fleet-based, I think I mentioned that already. And they, in the most recent story, they're described as having some sort of arrangement with what was known as the Blood Eagles chapter, which is another Blood Angels successor, and where they would meet together with them. Now, the Blood Eagles chapter subsequently split to become the Red Seraphs and the Angels Numinous, and this tradition continues where they meet up on the old Blood Eagles homeworld, and why is not explained. And so what we know, the most we know of them now, is that they're on in the Era Indomitus, they're trapped on the Terran side of the rift, and they, along with the others, are trying to find a way to get across it. So that's where they are now, and that's, as far as I can tell, just about everything we know about the Charnel Guard chapter. If anyone knows more about them, I'd love to hear it.
Oh yeah.
So
that's cool as hell. It almost, man, it almost sounds like there's like notes there of unfinished Alan Bly joint that might be out there
Sounds
somewhere.
like it. Yeah.
That's sad.
I didn't include this in my show notes, but I did find a comment on the Reddit subreddit Warhammer 40k lore, where someone claimed to have emailed Games Workshop and got a response about the Charnel Guard, which has a few more details, but I won't share those here because I don't know if it's official or not, or even if it's real.
Apocryphal, yeah.
You could find it if you wanted to. It wouldn't be terribly hard.
Yeah, give yourself.
So the next question is like, how would you? Okay, so you want to play Charnel Guard? How would you do it? Firstly, great choice because they look cool as hell. Secondly, good luck freehanding that chapter symbol. I would compare it.
If you'd like, if you're a listener, if you're an actual listener, message me and we'll work out some 3D prints for you because.
That would be cool.
Yeah, well, there's probably like
custom decals as well as the other way you can do it.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, hey, and John, I appreciate the use of the word decals. I don't know what a decal is, but like some people use that word. I'm not sure what it means, but anyways, what were you thinking?
Heresy is what it is.
What were you thinking for chapter traits, buddy?
So the first thing is you don't have to do anything with the rules at all. Take old units.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if you're feeling really brave, take a Fellblade. Maybe take a Sickrid instead.
Yeah.
Take those old units as obscure units from Imperial armor. That will give it a lot of flavor. Maybe you mix in some older armor marks in there.
Yeah.
Either just as they are, or maybe mix into your Primaris Marines.
What's that Predator? The Predator variant.
The Demos pattern.
Demos, yeah.
That one?
Yep, that
Demos,
one.
Yeah.
Because they have some interesting turrets for those, right? Like there's a heavy flamer turret, which would work well for Blood Angels, and I think
there's all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff in there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of weird ones.
Yeah. Ooh, I don't know actually. There's definitely some sort of weird plasma cannon. There's one that's just like a straight up Predator, but 30k themed. There's loads of cool stuff there, and it's actually kind of modelled off the old original Predator kit from start of second edition. It's really cool.
Yep.
I love the way they bring these things back to life. Okay, so that's the first thing you could do. You could take units from that era. So after the scouring, there's probably actually quite a lot of this war material left scattered across the galaxy that's been recovered following the scouring, and it was probably dispersed to some of the very early second, third founding chapters. So the other way, obviously you could just make them a Blood Angel successor if you wanted to. Then they would play like Blood Angels. That's maybe not terribly interesting. The two I picked from the Space Marine Codex to do this was to take the first one being Fearsome Aspect. So that's -1 leadership on enemy units within 3 inches.
Yeah.
And the second one would be to give them preferred enemy Heretic Astartes. And if you're being narrative about it, you'd sort of cross out Heretic and write Traitor instead.
Yeah, those traitor
that'd
bastards.
be a fantastic way to
Yes.
That'd be a great way to represent them. That's how I'd do it.
Absolutely. That sounds fantastic. And, John.
I put skulls all over them, like bone skulls, because the name is the Charnel Guard. They must have an enormous... On those fleets, they must have huge ossuaries full of remains of all their...
John.
Maybe their heroes. It'd be awesome.
What are you gonna do with your money, buddy? You can't take it with you. So what's stopping you?
It's not my money that worries me. It's my time.
What's stopping you from just one Fellblade, maybe for just display purposes, and maybe a kill team? Maybe just a kill team of guys.
I hear you. The problem is that it takes me. I'm currently painting a 5-man Terminator squad. I started painting them November, and they're not finished yet. It just takes me too long to paint things. I can't.
Fair enough.
I cannot justify starting another project at the moment.
Beautiful results, though. Beautiful results. So my choice was Atlantean spears. Now, sometimes I'm like I'll look at a paint scheme and I'll say, "Wow, way to not put any effort into that." And this is one of those. it's pretty much Spears of the Emperor. I mean, I'm just being honest. It's Emperor Spears paint scheme, basically. I'm not wrong, I don't think. But I thought the story was interesting. They appear in White Dwarf 457 and 459. I was gonna read the story. There's a short story that has these guys in it in 459. I can't find the damn issue anywhere in my house. I don't know what I did with it. But if you're interested in the in the Atlantean Spears, check out White Dwarf 459 because there's a short story that includes those Space Marines. They threw out the double deuces on Dante's call to congregate on Baal. Like, if anybody recalls, Dante said, "Please come." They said, "No, thank you." Instead, well, they have a good reason. They are stationed in Segmentum Tempestus, which is fully in the Imperium Nihilus. So they've got enough to deal with. Like, I'm pretty sure Dante is like, yeah, I get it. You guys do your thing. You're already doing what you need to do. They have the way their connection to Sanguinius manifests as they have the ability of foresight. So they have a pretty deep librarius. They still wrestle with the Black Rage like any other successor. But instead of pitying those who fall to the Black Rage, they see them as they see it as a mark of shame. They treat them with disdain instead of pity. So I actually don't think the Atlantean Spears have any Black Legion. Or sorry, I don't think they have any help me out here. Death Company. Yeah, I think they just give them the axe, to be honest. So I thought that was really interesting. Like the way the different chapters approach the Black Rage. I think that's really interesting. I'm not saying it's laudable. That's pretty cruel, but it is what it is. Yeah. I thought that the traits to use for these guys that made sense were knowledge is power, which I think is the same one used by the Blood Ravens. It gives you +1 to deny and manifest, which is kind of a low-hanging fruit for any chapter that has a overactive librarius. And I thought Master Artisans worked because these guys are really focused on quelling the Black Rage and the Red Thirst. So I thought that they might take the this isn't in the lore, this is just me kind of extrapolating. They probably take the whole artisan aspect of the blood angels and take it to another level. So I gave them the Master Artisans chapter tactic, which I think is +1 to hit per phase or something. I don't care what it is, but yeah, Master Artisans I thought made a lot of sense because everybody's kind of focused on improving their war gear and the artistic expression to quell the Black Rage and the Red Thirst. All right, Jason, what do you got?
So, I picked the Blood Drinkers from Death of Integrity. I was looking at their page, and they've obviously been around for a while, going back to, I guess, maybe one of the first codexes. So they've been around for a bit. But Death of Integrity is probably one of my favorite novels from Guy Haley. And this is the first time I was really, kind of exposed to them. They are definitely super creepy because, well, we'll talk about that in a second. And they're pretty terrifying, to be honest. But I liked how Guy wrote them in Death of Integrity. So they are a second founding chapter. And what's interesting about them is that they are known to consume human blood and have created elaborate rituals for this process. If you read the Death of Integrity book, they actually really talk about that, where like their chapter serfs have valves surgically implanted on them.
Okay. They're like maple trees.
Like maple trees. God. Like when I said that I liked it because they were
so much. So
super creepy and terrifying. They do talk about one of these rituals, and I remember reading the book. The first time I read that book, I was at an artist colony doing a 3-week thing, and I'm reading it, and I was just like, this is so weird. And then I go and work with some other people. I'm like, no, actually, this is kind of close to okay.
Jason,
whatever.
Jason, wait, hold on. You buried the lead there, buddy. You were at an artist colony?
Yeah, I spent 3 weeks in an artist colony being a composer and musician. Okay. And I was hanging out with performance artists who were, one of them was doing blood play and stuff. And I was like, I remember reading this and then going to a meeting and thinking, yeah, real life and this 40K fantasy, it's pretty close. So anyway,
I have so many questions, but let's move on.
Me too.
We're going to talk about this off air because it goes in not safe for work.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
5 seconds in.
Those are the questions I have.
I am tap dancing on bad behavior and having to bleep myself for the entire,
Hey, let's not call it bad behavior. Let's call it alternative lifestyle. Move on.
Okay, so what was kind of interesting about what's interesting is the blood drinkers seem to be more resistant to the red thirst and the black rage, and it was theorized that these blood rites might be the reason. And also because of this, the blood drinkers do have less death company, and that was kind of evident in that novel, but it was also mentioned in the wiki as well. I didn't pick traits because I don't know them well enough to really figure out what traits I would want to give.
You would almost just go with the Blood Angels ones. Just call them a Blood Angel direct successor. Yeah. And I like
and then just don't take the death company.
Yeah.
You don't have to use the rules. You can use your army selection to make this really interesting. Simply don't take anything with the death company keyword.
John, you've brought it up a few times. You can, what we did in the past in like 5th edition and earlier, a lot of the time, to add flavor to your army, you don't always need these specific chapter tactics or special abilities to give your army, to make your army special. Just pick the things that best reflect the army composition or the combat doctrine, and you have your customized experience, right? Like
exactly.
If you're playing ninth company, take a bunch of Devastator squads. You don't need special rules for that. Right?
Exactly. Or, one of the things there's so many things that Blood Angels are well known for. They have, because they're such an old chapter, they have an extraordinarily large number of Land Raiders and Terminator armor suits. So taking a large number of Land Raiders and Terminators is a very thematic Blood Angels list. Before you've even touched Death Company or Sanguinary Guard or any of their own special units. So you can really build in. There's so many different angles you can come at it with. Or Librarians, they're very psychically active for a Space Marine chapter. So take a bunch of Librarians, build lists around that. You've got another interesting way to build it beyond, I'm taking Death Company or, I'm taking Sanguinary Guard. There's a ton of ways you can go.
Yeah, I think a lot of people see these rules and say, well, I can't take this unit as troops or whatever anymore. Or I'm not incentivized for taking these units in some way. Like you shouldn't have to be incentivized. You should see the lore and say, okay, I'm going to take units that reflect the lore, and that should be enough for anybody. But Jason, I wanted to touch on something that you were talking about. The fact that this chapter, in order to resist the Black Rage, or at least the falling to the Red Thirst, they actually engage in it. They accept it as a part of their existence. And that is, I mean, let's be honest, that's something that is very relevant to actual psychology. Like whoever wrote this kind of knows what they're talking about. And I don't want to imply that I'm a psychologist or anything like that, but like, you know, actually kind of engaging in this behavior helps you ameliorate some of the anxiety that it causes in you. And so the way they've chosen to deal with the Red Thirst is to kind of let it happen every once in a while, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and compartmentalize it through rituals as well, which is quite an interesting way to approach it. I mean, I imagine probably this being Warhammer 40,000, it probably isn't working out too well for them deep down. But, you know, I haven't read this book, so Jason, you might be able to comment a bit more on that. But, you know,
well, yeah,
surely they haven't solved it, you know.
It's good that you mentioned that, because this book takes place, I think, during the 37th or 38th millennium. So before before 40K. And at the end of it, there's an Inquisitor's report. So the Inquisitors are trying to figure this out to know what is going on, to get at. And one of the comments was, you know, what happened to the chapter master again in this engagement? You know, they're kind of looking at like the Black Rage, I guess. So yeah,
that's awesome.
And as for the ritual, they go pretty much into detail. You know, that their chapter serfs all have, you know, spigots on their like main arteries and stuff, and they're purposefully bloodletting enough that they're tired, but they're not dead, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of like thralls then for vampire, isn't it?
Yeah, and
quite close,
something that it's a joint. It's both the Blood Drinkers and the Nova Marines, and throughout the book, the Nova Marines are kind of looking at their chapter serfs and saying things like, "What's wrong with these people?" You know, so there's that sort of thing where it's not very subtle. Like, people notice that there's something going on. So
yeah, well, you know, they're probably like, you know, F around and find out. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, it's one of my favorite guy. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we've all picked a successor chapter to talk about. And, you know, the great thing about successor chapters is it lets us think about the parent chapter in the first founding chapter in a different way. Let's talk about the Blood Angels as they're presented in the supplement by default. Let's talk about their combat doctrine. Jason, can you go over that for us? Like the
I'll go ahead and run through that, since I didn't choose a favorite objective.
Combat doctrine.
Yeah. All right. So the current combat doctrine. So it's +1 to wound when charged, or heroically intervening. So basically +1 to wound.
What we generally call like charging situations.
Yeah. It's like that first round, I'm assuming, of melee.
It's the first round of combat for that character.
Yeah. All right. Plus, they get a +1 to advance and charge rolls.
Nice.
And flesh chairs get a -1 AP instead of additional charge distance. Okay.
which is weird, right? You would think it would be the opposite, almost.
The Flesh Tearers, like, all of their lore is just how, even among Space Marines, they're more bloodthirsty than other Space Marines.
And
Good
just
point.
unhinged levels of savagery. They're the ones that really they're a really interesting successor chapter actually for the Blood Angels.
And I'm trying to
yeah,
remember.
they're off the chain. They were, until very recently, they were dying out. Their attrition was so great that they the chapter was down to about 3 companies, I think, in the end.
Oh.
And their strategy at one point was to basically avoid all Imperial units and go on suicide charges to try and save the reputation of the chapter, because I think there was an incident in the Third War of Armageddon where a bunch of Flesh Tearers go just absolutely flatten a squad of orcs and just carry on into a Sisters of Battle unit. It's either a Sisters of Battle unit or a refugee camp or both, and it's a terrible mess. They sort of completely lost it. So just absolute savagery is the name of the game for the Flesh Tearers. And then that kind of got wound back a bit with the Era Indomitus, but yeah, they're a really interesting chapter in their own right.
And they go back all the way to the Horus Heresy because they're a second chapter.
They do. They're a second founding chapter, and I'm going to get the names wrong, and everyone's going to be furious at me. I think it's Amit, who is one. He's not the first captain of the Blood Angels. He's another captain of the Blood Angels, and he, at the time, I think, represented that more sort of savage aspect of
he was
chapter,
like
of the Legion.
Like a specific chapter master in the heresy.
Yeah, and he became the first chapter master of the Flesh Tearers chapter.
Or the company I apologize, the company commander. Sorry.
Yeah, I get very lost with the names in the heresy. Right? I have to say, because all the Space Marine legions have different names for them as well, so it really gets very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so they're sort of dying out by the time of the Era Indomitus, and then they get pulled out of fire by Rubuti Gulman and his Primaris. But yeah, this extra -1 is just to represent that savagery.
Yeah. Okay, so then we have Savage Echoes, which is +1 to attack in the Assault Doctrine.
Yep.
The Lost can induct. This is actually pretty interesting. They can induct captains and lieutenants as Death Company, gaining Black Rage and Death Visions, which John will talk about later. They cannot be Warlord. They gain a Death Company aura to replace the standard one, and are exempt from the company command rule. In match play, this is a unit upgrade, while in Crusade, it happens through course of the campaign. That's cool. I think that's really cool.
So you can have your characters fall to the Death Company. This does mean you can fill an entire detachment with things with the Death Company keyword if you make the Martyrs your Warlord, and then have a captain fall to the Black Rage. I think, and then have like 3 squads of Death Company. That's a legal list. And then put in some Death Company dreadnoughts, put them in drop pods, the Forge-Roll drop pods, and it will either win very big or lose very big, but either way it'll be a blast. So
John, how does this differ from previous editions?
Oh, so there's a few things going on here. They've actually really enhanced this set of the rules for what to do with a character that falls to the Death Company in this book. Now, I personally think certainly from a narrative point of view, this is brilliant. The way it worked in 8th edition was there was a stratagem you could use before the game, which gave someone the Death Company keyword. And before that, I don't think you could put characters into the Death Company. I might be wrong about that. Someone can correct me on that. This is a new thing. Okay, so the other thing that they brought in here is Death Visions, and this is a new set of rules. And when you have one of these characters who can be either a captain or a lieutenant who's fallen to the Death Company, they can, once per battle, have a death vision. So one of the things in the background we talked about before is when you fall to Black Rage, you literally think you're on the Vengeful Spirit trying to get to Horus's throne room. You might even think you are Sanguinius himself. And they actually have put this into the rules now. So there's 3 different death visions these characters can have. There's On the Bridge of the Vengeful Spirit, there's Grace of the Angel, and there's To Slay the War Master. And these are 3 different, they sort of give you different abilities. One's against, the first one is On the Bridge of the Vengeful Spirit, enter the bridge of the Archtraitor's flagship. All that stands between the warrior and Horus are a host of traitor legionnaires. And you can only use it if you can see either an infantry character or a monster character. And if you use this death vision, then you can gain +1 attack for every 5 enemy models within 6 inches of the model. So it's like you see a character, you think it's Horus, or maybe you see, I don't know, a Carnifex, and you're like, that's Horus. And then if you're in combat with, say, a blob of Termagants, for each 5 Termagants that are there, that captain or lieutenant who's fallen to the Black Rage gains an extra attack, and you can also reroll to hit. So you're like, you see this thing you think is Horus, and so you just blend whatever infantry is in front of you. I won't go through the other 2 because it's Justin's into reading rules.
What are the names? What are the names of them, though, John?
The first one is On the Bridge of the Vengeful Spirit. The second is The Grace of the Angel, which is Horus prepares to deliver the final strike against his brother, but when the fatal blow lands, his weapon somehow shatters against Sanguinius' golden breastplate. The Blood Angel's Primarch still lives, and renewed hope, the duel continues. That gives him a 3-up invulnerable save.
Ooh.
Awesome. And then there's To Slay the War Master, striking at a chink in the War Master's armor. This warrior attempts to land a killing blow to end the heresy in its tracks. So they think they're Sanguinius battling Horus. And, oh goodness, that's a really good one. You roll off, and if you win, you select one of the enemy models you're in base space with, and they get D3+3 mortal wounds. Ooh. That's huge, actually. Yeah. So these guys get really scary if you put the characters into the Death Company, but you do have to pay points for it, which is good. They are very situational, but I think this is wonderful rules because it's just so thematic for the chapter, and it's just going to the heart of what the Black Rage is. So from a narrative point of view, I think it's fantastic.
That is really cool. Yeah, the old way of doing like Death Company is really interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. So the other thing is like the Blood Angels have some really interesting manufacturing abilities that is a little different from I actually kind of forgot we were we were chatting about this earlier. I totally forgot that previous editions had set movements for infantry and vehicles.
Yeah.
And it wasn't unique by unit. And Blood Angels used to be really fast. I think they're pretty fast now, but you have to actually kind of assign abilities to units now, right?
So there used to be an ability called Overcharged Engines, and this I think starts in the 3rd edition Codex, where you could just move. I think it was an extra 6 inches with your. I think it was like on the roll of 1, you immobilize the vehicle,
right?
And otherwise, you could just move 6 inches forward. Now this is a stratagem called Lucifer Pattern Engines, which is an auto 6-inch advance, and that's. Situationally, that's good. One of those things that if you ever remember it will probably win you one game in about 50, but it will win you a game.
Right.
You just have to be on that objective. So that's kind of cool. Baal Predators, they automatically have that ability. Baal Predator is a specialized predator that the Blood Angels found the STC for. They found the standard template construct. and refused to hand it over to the AdMech, which they did not like. That went down badly, caused some tension. And so there's this constant, actually, there's a strife between the Blood Angels and the Adeptus Mechanicus because of this. And for some reason, they won't give it back to them. So they also have these really fast Predators. Honestly, you don't see them very much because they're not actually very good.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to say it. I wish they were. I have one, but it doesn't see the table very often.
Yeah, they used to be a lot better because I think they used to have Outflank, which was really good for a Predator with a Flamer, with a double flame.
That's right, yeah.
Quadruple flame. Like, you could actually have quad flamers on it, I think, right?
Yeah, it's just got a Flamestorm. There's two different loadouts. You can give it either a Flamestorm cannon or a twin assault cannon on the turret.
Plus turret.
Then either heavy flamer.
Right?
Yeah, and then it's either heavy flamers or heavy bolters on the sponsons.
Right. So outflank with that in the past was insanity.
Oh, it could be silly, yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Before, like, you know, if you had a transport that moved 18 inches, I remember that because I was an orc player. So I had a transport moving like 19 inches on turn one. That's just bonkers, especially out of reserve. That's just stupid because you could disembark.
Yeah, you used to be able to disembark afterwards. Yeah,
it
got really silly. Like you could get a 24-inch move and charge with Blood Angels. I made this is back when I was like playing in my parents' basement when I was like 13 or something. And my friends hated my Death Company because you'd sort of put them in a rhino on the edge of your deployment zone. They can move. Vehicle moves like 12 inches, then +6 for overcharged engines. Then you get out and then you charge. So that's about, it all adds up to about 24 inches. So you could get a turn one charge in.
And that was when charge wasn't random. It was just straight up.
It wasn't. It was just a 6-inch move, I think. I mean, or 7 or 5 or whatever it was. People really hated my Death Company, but they never stopped deploying on the edge of their deployment zone. Like,
yes, guys, that's just
anyway. Just
especially
be 1 inch back and you're fine.
Yeah, if you had the table quarters deployment, right? Like back in the day, you used to have this table quarters deployment where you would be, you know, a lot of Adeptus, the Imperial Guard players, they would fill their entire deployment zone, and I'm like, you know, if I come in reserve, I'm just gonna be in combat with you next turn, right? Well, anyways, that's all in the past. Now we just get turn one assaults regardless, anyways. So let's talk about some of these new rules, which I quite like personally, but I'm not a long time Blood Angels players, so that's one of the reasons that we had you on, John.
Now, in some ways, you've got the worst person in the world here because I haven't played a single game of 9th edition with the coronavirus.
You've read the Codex, right?
So I've read the Codex a few times. Yeah, no, I think there's actually some quite nice stuff in here. Because mainly because of the focus of the podcast, I've chosen stuff that I think is more narratively interesting. I'm not qualified at the moment to talk about really competitive choices. I have played competitive Warhammer in the past. I actually really enjoy it. I wouldn't say it's my main focus. I tend to be one of those people who's on the bottom tables, but I will go to tournaments and quite enjoy it. I think tournaments are a fantastic way to play 3 or 5 or 6 new people who you've never played before. And I think as long as you are aware that you're going to be playing a tournament, people will be playing to win. That's completely fine. You can have a great time at tournaments, even if you're a more narratively oriented player. I wouldn't write them off. Some people do, and I think it's a shame. Anyway,
I'm right there.
Caveat out of the way.
I'm right with you, John. Like, I go to tournaments a lot, and I lose a lot.
Yeah,
but I treat every person as a new best friend. That doesn't always work out, obviously. But I love matched play 40K. I love going to events, meeting new people, playing different armies. That's a big thing. And you know what? Tournaments are a great place to learn the rules too. Like, even if you play all the time, you're going to learn something. You're going to say, oh, I never knew that's how that worked. And that's okay. Let your opponent teach you how to play the game. There's nothing wrong with
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say is I think if you go to a tournament, you owe it to people to at least try and put a moderately okay list together.
You should know your rules.
For your opponent. Know your rules. At least try a little bit with your list.
Yeah.
I'm never going to take a souped up list to a tournament. One thing that's never mentioned here actually is if you spend 2 months painting a unit, you'll never be able to bring out any of these really elite lists anyway.
No.
I don't chase the meta at all.
Yeah.
But I do think you owe it to people to at least try and put something together that might win.
Yeah, that's what I usually bring my orcs to a tournament because I kind of have everything, so I can make any list. I find it's always good to have at least one army where you have most of the things and you can put something together that is at least conceptually good, right? Or on the flip side of things, play any narrative you want. And then after that, if you get your fancy, try something else, spice things up, but have at least one army that you have like most of everything so you can play any list, right?
Yep.
So we're going to storm into secondary objectives. New secondary objectives. John, you want to do your pick?
Yeah, so I'm going to pick Blade of Sanguinarius, which is a really thematic one. This is where you have one of your characters in your Blood Angels army challenge a character in the opposing force. The way it works is you get 5 points at the end of the game if that character is dead. You get an extra 5 points if they were killed by a melee weapon. And you get an extra 5 points if they were killed with a melee attack by the person that challenged them. So I would say 2 things about this. Firstly is I think that's really thematic and cool for Blood Angels. This is kind of heroic individual trying to best someone in combat, and I think that's really thematic. I'd also say if you're playing Blood Angels, I think you pick the right choice, you should be fairly sure you can get 10 points here. Yeah. Name a character, kill them in melee. You should be able to do that for 10 points. So I think it's actually probably a fairly good pick as well.
Right.
And the extra 5 is, icing on the cake. But yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think I've seen some rules similar to this, but I've never seen this one. This is reminiscent of the seventh edition challenge rules, except it's army wide, like it's game instead of by turn. We'll come back to that later though for another one of John's picks, which I'm not so excited about, but that's fine. But that one's really cool. It's like, yeah, you come at me, bro. My pick is Relentless Assault. I picked this one because when it comes to narrative play and playing to thematic play, narrative, and there are 2 different things, but they're kind of joint. They're kind of like a Venn diagram of Warhammer. Thematic play where, maybe the actual unit rules might not fully reflect the army. Having secondary objectives that coax you into behavior that reflects your army background makes a lot of sense. And I think this is one of the ones that does it. It doesn't look very imaginative on face value, but the fact that it rewards you for what it rewards you for shows that they want you to play a certain way. So it's called Relentless Assault. You get 4 victory points if there are more Blood Angels units in the enemy deployment zone at the end of your turn than there are enemy units in your deployment zone. It's not a secondary objective that forces you to kill units in combat. It doesn't force you to drink the blood of your enemies. All it's doing is saying press the assault, get into the enemy deployment zone. That could be shooting units, that could be combat units, it could be any kind of unit you care to ask for. And it at the same time, it's rewarding you for keeping the enemy out of your deployment zone, which implies that there actually should be some board presence before the game begins. Unlike, say, the White Scars, which the entire army needs to be on the other side of the battlefield, the Blood Angels are a more Codex compliant chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I chose that one. It actually kind of represents the army very well. Even if it's not
I think you actually bring up a great point there as well. Like, people always talk about the Blood Angels and say, oh, you play Blood Angels, you must want to take all assault squads or all assault intercessors or all death company or all sanguinary guard. Like we mentioned earlier, they're effectively by structure a Codex chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, I always think of these things sort of pre-Indomitus, but there's more tactical squads than any other sort of squad in the Blood Angels chapter, or intercessor units in the Blood Angels chapter than there are assault units. Yeah. And so, if I can make a sort of general comment, I think this book captures that wonderfully, because your simple Marines play like Blood Angels, and you're not penalised for taking them anymore. I think that's great.
Right. Like the combat doctrines give you the extra oomph in combat, even if you're not all wielding power weapons. You have a little bit more.
Exactly.
Oomph. Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, getting charged by, tactical squads are actually fairly scary now. Yeah. Getting charged by Blood Angels intercessors is no joke. From if they're in the assault doctrine. Because you have 2 attacks base, they have an extra attack on the charge for being Space Marines. You have an extra attack for Savage Echoes, the +1 to wound.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
They're genuinely quite scary. And then -1 AP as well, because in the assault doctrine.
Yeah.
It's massive.
And if you've got a lieutenant, that's +2 to wound.
Yep.
Jeez, Pete.
Wait, is it? No, the lieutenants are still reroll 1s, aren't they?
Sorry. Reroll 1s to wound. Sorry.
Yeah.
But still.
Anyway. Coming back to the one you were talking about, this again, whilst it encourages you to move forward, it doesn't penalise you for having, a unit of Hellblasters at the back, which is what the Blood Angels would do. They would have, these quote-unquote standard units would still be there, but they would still have fire support.
Or a Ball Predator, or whatever.
The Flesh Terrors might not, but the Blood Angels would.
Exactly. So let's look at stratagems. John, what did you pick for stratagems?
So I picked Angel's Sacrifice. I think this is quite an interesting one. I have not seen an ability like this before, so I thought I'd sort of highlight it. It's following on from the theme of the previous one for me. This is again the sort of I guess you call it the sort of good side of the Blood Angels, the angelic side of them. This is a character essentially sacrificing themselves to protect others around them. So it's an epic deed stratagem. It's 1 command point, and the way it works is you select a Blood Angels character unit and not a vehicle, so no librarian dreadnoughts or anything like that. Until the end of the phase. This is in the fight phase. Until the end of the fight phase, each time an enemy unit is selected to fight, if they are within engagement range of that character, they have to attack that character. So imagine you charge, for example, a chaplain and a load of death company into an enemy unit. You can force all the enemy unit that's able to attack the chaplain, not the death company. So from a gameplay point of view, you can do some interesting stuff with it as well.
I don't have to imagine it, John. This is my entire 7th edition. My entire 7th edition. Oh, I guess no, but you know what? I'm just kind of joking.
Sorry, I've just had flashback to 7th edition.
Oh, jeez.
No, you've triggered something in me. 7th edition challenge rules. I just forgot about that.
As long as it's not the entire rule set, I approve. I think this is a great thematic stratagem.
It's only to be fair, it's only engagement range.
Yeah.
So if they're not in engagement range, they can still attack other models.
Right.
It's only the ones with engagement.
If I wanted to swing around,
a really big blob.
Yeah. No,
But
it's
you can
totally.
imagine it could be really effective with like a Terminator Captain, for example, or something like that.
Oh,
Something
yeah.
really tough against a really big blob of, I know, Hormigons, something like that.
Awesome.
Could be quite effective. Anyway, yeah.
Excellent. You know what? If we were playing a game, I would probably send my war boss against your character anyways. So it's fine.
It's the right way to do it.
It's how you do it. So I picked Descent of Angels. It's kind of like the no-brainer pick, but I wanted to do a no-brainer pick for this one because it is kind of supposed to be fundamental to the Blood Angels. So the way that Descent of Angels manifests in this edition is that a unit that arrived from reserves with a jump pack gets +1 to hit rolls and ignores any charge modifiers. So this actually does apply to shooting units. So if you've got a unit of Inceptors, they would get +1 to hit, which is pretty good for plasma. It's really okay. It doesn't stop you from blowing your brains out, but at least it gives you a really good shooting unit to blast away with. I personally still like the heavy bolter one. I think that's really cool, but a lot of folks are hip on the plasma these days.
Yeah, I mean, I fear this one might get a bit oppressive, I have to say, from a rules perspective.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the things where I'm kind of expecting them to FAQ this to be in the fight phase. I have to say, I would like to see that personally. That said, at that point, it doesn't really benefit any of the Primaris units.
Right.
Because they famously don't have any combat jump units yet. So
exactly.
That may be why they're left as it is.
And kind of
I don't think of this as being like a shooting thing.
Right.
I find that a bit strange. But
fair. That's fair, but it also is good that they allowing it for any attack admits that the Blood Angels aren't just a close combat chapter 2.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I think you're right there. The other thing I would say is don't forget you can give Blood Angels assault squads melter guns, so you can also drop them if you're a holdout like me. You can take an assault squad, give them 2 melter guns, and drop them in and get +1 to hit on those melter guns too, which is interesting, I would say.
Can I tell you, man? Oof, those 5-man 5th edition, those 5-man assault squads, they made me so mad with the 2 melter guns. Against my buddy used to just put him right next to my Land Raider, or sorry, not my Land Raider, my battle wagons, and they would just go up like Roman candles.
Yep.
Made me so mad.
Yeah, so I think 5th edition was the last time the Blood Angels were really in the naughty corner in terms of rules. Well, the thing is, it wasn't really the Blood Angels so much as the Smash Captains that the problem aped, in my opinion. Others might disagree, but I think otherwise they were kind of okay, but the sort of omnipresent Smash Captains pushed them over the edge into kind of oppressive. But I think they're going to be pretty strong now with this supplement, I'd say. Anyway.
At any rate, I think Descent of Angels works really good, and it applies to a lot of units, both mostly Firstborn, but also some Primaris, so that's good. But yeah, here's to hoping we get some sweet jump pack units for the Primaris that aren't just Inceptors. Jason, what did you pick?
So I was trying to think of if I built a Blood Angels army, what would I do? And I always typically pull out librarians immediately. And so I went with Spiritual Might, which for 1 command point, you can select 1 Blood Angel Psyker unit from your army, and you can attempt to manifest 1 additional psychic power. Yeah, typo. Or maybe not. Maybe it was a Freudian. But, 1 additional power with that unit in this phase. So, yeah, I thought that would be quite interesting. If I was running a Blood Angels army.
The orcs have one that just gives you 1 extra per turn. But orcs are crazy and dumb. Having a stratagem that lets you kind of, if you feel like you might not need it throughout the game, but if you suddenly find yourself in need of the use of a psychic power, why not, right?
Right.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to warlord traits. John, which one did you pick? All right, John, what did you have for your warlord trait?
Okay, so I have to admit, one area where I found the book maybe slightly less interesting is the warlord traits. So I think there's some really good ones here. I just don't think they're super interesting. So I went ahead and picked probably the most thematic one, I think. I picked Gift of Foresight, which is this heroic warrior bears a glimmering of Sanguinarius' prophetic gifts. Flashes of foresight allow him to parry and weave around his enemy's blows with supernatural speed and skill, which means, in practice, that each turn your warlord can reroll 1 hit roll, 1 wound roll, and 1 saving throw. And this is one that's a default for Brother Corbulo, whose lore says that he has a sort of gift, part of Sanguinarius' gift for foresight, and he often uses this to the chapter's advantage. So this is a way to represent that in the rules. So I picked that one because I thought it was kind of a nice little bit of the rules to the lore to see reflected in the rules.
Right. And I think this is one I would pick for an Atlantean Spears warlord, because obviously they all have kind of this gift, this same gift, like they're in tune with Sanguinius's gift of foresight. I picked Artisan of War because I was really keen on the whole basket weaving thing. This warlord is a true artist, both on and off the battlefield. His talents are reflected in the exquisite workmanship of his war gear, for he insists on personally crafting his weapons of war. So I think I agree. I think a lot of these are, from a rules perspective, they're a bit milquetoast. But because all this does is give you access to one of the special issue war gear, either
in addition to a relic.
Yes, in addition to their relic. So they'll have adamantium mantle, artificer armor, mastercrafted weapon, or digital weapon, in addition to another relic. Where it's interesting, I think it just tries to tie into that artisan aspect of the Blood Angels. I think that's really cool. It's really good for modeling opportunities more than anything else. It lets you kind of say, well, this is my super cool artificer armor. Also, I think this is actually another topic I wanted to bring up, that I think is unfortunate in the book, but I'll go with the positive first. It lets you kind of create like a sanguinary captain with this for a successor chapter. But, John, I really think that successors probably should be allowed to bring in their army either the Sanguinor or Asterath, don't you think?
I agree, actually. I think so. This is something that keeps coming up with the way Games Workshop is handling successor chapters, which is, you can try and build a really thematic chapter, but you do get penalised for it. The other classic is if you need to take relics of the Blood Angels, because it's really a relic of the Blood Angels chapter and not the Atlantean Spears chapter. It costs you CP to do it, to get access to it. And I do think, I don't know, I think that's a bit unfair. I wouldn't mind seeing that changed, I have to say. And Asterath, actually, it would make perfect sense, given the lore they've written for him, where he does roam around the galaxy finding...
These guys show up all the time, right?
Yeah, so him and the Sanguinor, I think, would make perfect sense. I completely agree with you. From a thematic perspective.
Right.
And I think it would do no harm from a gaming perspective either.
So I think, if you've got a successor chapter, this is a good way. If you want to use that Sanguinor model, go ahead and give them Artisan of War, give them the Artificer armor with their jump pack, and you can have a cool 2+ armor save jump pack guy. Nothing wrong with that. Jason, what did you pick?
I picked Soul Warden. I was kind of between on this, whether Soul Warden or of Wrath and Rage from the Flesh Tearers list. So Soul Warden, when a friendly BA unit was within 6 inches of this Warlord, each time a model in that unit would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound. Roll 1d6, and on a 5 up, that wound's not lost, which is kind of the old feel no pain rule. I thought that might be something workable. But the one I feel that's most kind of narrative is for the Flesh Tearers, which is of Wrath and Rage, which is exploding 6s in melee, which, with the Flesh Tearers rep, that's, that should be
fair.
That shouldn't even be a Warlord trait. That should be literally, that's your army.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I think that wouldn't even be out of place. The other one they have there that I love is Merciless Butcher, which is the Warlord gets 1 additional attack for every 5 enemy models within 3 inches. So this is just like ploughing into a horde of orcs or something and just going absolutely mental and ripping them to shreds.
Oh my goodness.
I think that's wonderful, actually. I have no idea if it's actually good in the game or not, but it's a brilliantly thematic piece of rule trait.
So you decided to put your orcs on 25mm bases, huh? let me tell you how that worked out for you in just a second. Oh, fantastic.
My Smash Captain will be there very soon. Don't worry.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk about the Sanguinary Discipline. Now, I think, you can still select from the Space Marines one, either Librarius or Obscuration, which, depending on the theme of your successor chapter, it's kind of whatever. But
if you're using like Phobos,
yeah, if you're doing Phobos or like the chapter I was talking about, the Prescience one, I think they would want to use Prescience instead of one of these. But John, what were you thinking?
So I picked a classic. I went with Wings of Sanguinius. Blood red wings of psychic energy spring from the back of the librarian, allowing him to soar across the battlefield like an avenging angel. Excuse me. So this is Warp Charge 6, and it allows you to move in your psychic phase 12 inches with the fly keyword. One thing that is either, depending on your perspective, either a very sensible change or no fun, is that you lose the fly keyword now at the end of the psychic phase, which meant before you kept it so you could, take a Terminator librarian, fly him across the battlefield and have him fly into a plane and hit it with a stick, which is... I can't decide if that's incredibly awesome or too silly even for Warhammer.
You're missing a word. You're missing a word, John. The word is Dreadnought.
Yes, yeah. I haven't gone to Flying Dreadnought. This is if you see memes about Flying Dreadnought, this is where this comes from. So you can make a Librarian Dreadnought fly with this rule, which is something.
It is something. It's a thing.
I would do it.
I would do it. If I had a Blood Angels army, I would do it every time. Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's perfect. I picked Celerity. Quickening. Warp Charge 6. It says the librarian channels his psychic might and the deadly powers of the Immaterium flow through him, raising his speed to deadly heights. Yeah, I'm just all I'm thinking about is Vampire the Masquerade here with super fast vampire movement. So that's why I chose it as a thematic one. Lets you reroll advance and charge rolls for that psyker, and they get D3 additional attacks. This, from a match play perspective, this one might only be good for the Librarian Dreadnought. I'm not sure you'd be... Well, okay, maybe Mephiston. Jesus.
Yeah. I use it a lot on Mephiston, actually, when I take him.
Good lord.
Yeah, it's just...
Yeah, it would be good for him.
And rerolling charges on Mephiston is pretty silly, really.
He is a monster. He is just a monster. Okay. Jason, what'd you pick?
I picked Blood Boil just because, I mean, it's almost one of the exact same rules in one of the Thousand Suns psychic abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So, Warp Charge 6, if manifested, select one enemy unit that's within 18 inches and visible to the Psyker and roll 2d6. If total is more than the highest toughness of the models in the unit, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. If the total is more than double the highest toughness, it suffers 3 mortal wounds instead. I like the name of it. Actually, it's a little bit different than the Thousand Suns one. This is actually a better psychic ability than the one that the Thousand Suns have. I think there's, I want to say it's like a Warp Charge 8 or 9. I can't remember the name of it now, but yeah, I kind of do like this. That as a, it comes across as being very Blood Angels. You know, we're just going to boil your blood. That's pretty cool.
I think it is.
Yeah, this one's got a lot better as well. It used to be rubbish in 8th edition.
Oh, really?
But now it's actually kind of. I'm looking at it and I'm like, actually, this is pretty good power. I'm actually thinking about taking this now.
Yeah, it's not a closest. It's not closest enemy unit. It's enemy unit. Exactly. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
The one we missed, I think, is Unleash Rage, which basically causes the red thirst to kind of temporarily erupt in a unit, which is good.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Relics. Yeah, Exploding Six, which is good. Probably really good on some units, actually. John, what did you have for your favorite relic?
Okay, so I mean, I think the relics are great. There was lots of them I could have picked here. I went with Visage of Death as sort of a kind of cool one. This exquisitely crafted mask is a thing of dark beauty to the Blood Angels and a sign of impending doom for their enemies. The unchanging expression of the mask inspires fear and uncertainty even in confident enemies. They see no anger, pain, or elation on the bearer's face. Clues as to the warrior's state of mind in the duel. So in practice, that's -1 to hit in melee. So that's the same as a death mask. Mm-hmm. And also, enemy units in 3 inches lose obsec. Now, I think this is where, if you want to think more about match play, I think for a good player, that's a really powerful ability. Because suppose you've got, a tough troops unit on objective, the ability to just cancel that ability is extremely powerful. Think about something like Custodians or something like that, where you have quite small unit sizes. I think that's a powerful ability. I don't think it's going to come up every game, but it's cool.
That is bonkers. Especially if like Imperial Knights get like a similar ability to the Giants in AOS. Like this is like a whole group of boys. Like you're like, yeah, I know there's 30 of you, but it doesn't matter. Wow.
Yeah. So it's so what it does is it changes it from being, if this unit is here, it holds unless something else has the same ability. And now there's defaults the number of models there, even if you have objectives secured or similar. And I mean, clearly it's designed to be a death mask. That's where they've written it. I actually like the idea of being on a chaplain instead, where they have those skull helmets. I think that's quite cool. I think that would be quite sort of thematic.
Nice.
There's quite literally a Visage of Death. It is the skull.
My mind automatically went to like a Sanguinary Guard, like captain type character, with the Artisan of War and Visage of Death. You're like, yeah, it's basically a Sanguinary Guard captain. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to make it a chaplain.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is actually, if you want to do what you were discussing, have a Sanguinary Guard type captain unit or character or a pseudo sanguinary, this is a great relic to pick because it is a death mask and they would be wearing one.
Cool. I picked the Crimson Plate. I decided to try out a like Jason, give a little credence to the Flesh Tearers. I think this is about the same as it was in 8th edition, but I wanted to bring it up because I think it's cool. It's Amit's. Well, okay, it's assumed to be Amit's Terminator armor. which is a Flesh Terror's relic. It gives you +1 movement, which I think brings you up to a hefty 5 inches of movement. But also +1 to advance, or sorry, not +1 to advance, but it lets you advance and charge. So you're actually moving 5 plus a D6 and still charging, which is pretty good.
It's 6 because Terminator armor is 5-inch move.
Oh, it is. Ooh, a 6-inch Terminator. Nice. I think Orc Meganobs are 4 inches. But you also get a 4-inch Pile-In and Consolidate, which is also extremely good. Extremely cool. But I also think that this is extremely thematic for the Flesh Terrors, not just because it's on its armor, but it puts you in a heavy plate armor, and it gives you a lot of cool mobility and the ability to get into combat faster. So I like that. Jason.
All right, so I chose Galleon Staff. So another librarian, unit, or another librarian relic. So a model equipped with a Force Staff, which that does not include a Librarian Dread. We'll talk about that later. They gain the Galleon Staff ability. So each time this model takes a Psychic test to manifest a Psychic power from the Sanguinary discipline, add 1 to that Psychic test. The relic does replace the Force Staff and has a decent weapon profile. It's a little bit better than a regular staff. But it can't be used by Librarian Dread because that is another type of Force Staff that has a naming convention, I believe. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's...
otherwise I'd give a Librarian Dread Galleon Staff and then make him fly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's worth giving a quick shout out to one other relic here, which is the Icon of the Angel, purely because it allows Blood Angels units within 6 inches of the bearer to reroll charge rolls. So I think from a sort of gameplay point of view, you're going to take that one every time because that's really, really good. But I think we've covered some really interesting stuff here. So.
Yeah, that's I could see that being a really good, especially if you're doing like a Descent of Angels list with Vanguard veterans or Sanguinary Guard. You probably want somebody with that relic in the Vanguard with you. Well, I guess it's not the Vanguard, it's the turn 2, whatever.
I just thought it'd be worth shouting that one out because if you play against Blood Angels, realistically, someone's probably going to take this. So watch out for it.
And anybody can take it. It seems like there's no requirement. Like you don't need to have something else to take it. It's just, you can just take it. So,
and it's not core units. It's any Blood Angels unit. So that's really strong.
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. That is good. Okay. So we each picked a, Blood Angels specific unit, but first, John was going to go over some of the units that don't exist yet anymore. Some characters that maybe fell by the wayside. And then he's going to talk about his pick.
So this is just very brief. This is sort of blast from the past. For those of you of similar vintage to me. The Blood Angels have an enormous number of special characters in the Codex. And they've sort of increased over the years. There's 2, however, that have disappeared over time. The first is in 2nd edition. There was a character called Veteran Sergeant Clotin, who was the Guardian of the Shroud. And he was ancient. He's even older than Commander Dante, apparently in the old Codex. And his charge was to carry the Shroud of Sanguinius, the Death Shroud of Sanguinius, into battle. So he had a small box, and this thing's 10,000 years old, and so it's worn down over time. So there's just like a shred of this thing left, and it contains a very powerful stasis field. And whenever he deactivates the stasis field, it sort of sends all the Blood Angels around him into ecstasies. So I think that makes quite a nice. If you want to do something kind of thematic with your army, you could maybe make veteran sergeant Clothian by trying to find a way to give a veteran sergeant the icon of the angel, perhaps, and do it that way and kind of build that. And I just thought it was a neat piece of lore that's kind of dropped by the wayside. The other one I want to shout out is, because I actually have this guy in my own army, is Moria the Chosen, who came in 3rd edition. He was the first Death Company Dreadnought. So now, he was a special character at that time, and there was one Death Company Dreadnought. I'm just trying to find the quote. Here it is. It was upon the field of battle at Camorga that the mighty Captain Moriar fell, defending the ridge against the despicable Eldar. Many were his wounds, and sanguinary priests were lost out to heal him. And so it was that Moriar was interred in the sarcophagus of the Furiosa Dreadnought built by Brother Morleo, as were Belafon, Dario, and Amaretto before him. Upon gaining his strength, Moriar was struck by visions of Sanguinius, his own near-death state triggering the Black Rage. Immortal now in his adamantium shell, Moriar survived the Black Rage, hungering for battle and death. The red thirst grips him, and the revered brothers of the Amorium modified his armoured suit so that he may partake of the vital liquid and be restrained when not in battle. So there you go. There's a blast from the past for you all. So they're prepared to modify a dreadnought's chassis so that they can put blood into the dreadnought to try and control the Black Rage.
Oh my god!
Wow. So those are a few that don't exist anymore. I believe he was captain of the 4th Company. I cannot remember. I read that. Anyway,
that's cool.
Well, that makes me think that,
I like that one.
They could start dreadnoughts earlier. Like, if they have the right aspirant, they could just jam them in there and fill them full of blood for a year and then let them loose.
Well, I think he's still in the grip of the Red Thirst and Black Rage.
Ah, well.
They all are the Death Company dreadnoughts. And so now they have more of them because the Black Rage is becoming a larger and larger problem. So that's a sort of evolution of the lore. But I thought it was quite interesting to see the first one was a special character at one point.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's all we need to say about him because the rules are pretty irrelevant at this point. 3rd edition rules don't mean very much these days, except for one example, which we'll come to in a moment. So the Blood Angel specific data sheet I chose, I think there's really only one to choose. If someone says pick a Blood Angel data sheet, it really has to be the Death Company, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So the Death Company, as we've discussed, is this ad hoc fighting unit that's formed by the Blood Angels on the eve of battle. And what happens is, and this is another one of these very old pieces of text. I'm going to read it out of the current Codex supplement, but it's almost exactly the same in the 2nd edition one. It's really not changed much over time. On the eve of battle, the Blood Angels bend the knee and turn their thoughts to synchronize the sacrifice. Chaplains pace amongst warriors, blessing each whilst chanting the Mori Patris, the Mass of Doom. They take careful note of which warriors slur their speech, are glazed by, or appear overly excitable, for these are the mostly likely to succumb to the Black Rage. Most do not, as much of their training has been dedicated to suppressing the strength of this affliction. For some, however, its call is too strong, and the memories of their Primarch too overwhelming. These warriors collapse into the chaplain's arms and are inducted into the Death Company. So that's how they form this unit. It's at prayers the night before the battle, and what they then do is they paint the armor of the afflicted Space Marines black, and they paint these enormous red saltires across it, these red crosses, and those are meant to represent the wounds of Sanguinius. By the way, I have no idea how you pronounce his name. Sanguinius, no idea. So I tend to use both. And then they will write parchments of the great deeds of these warriors and affirm that they are worthy. And these were, I think were is probably the right phrase at this point, great Space Marines, great warriors of the Imperium. And then they send them off as a forlorn hope, led by the chaplains, and they send them to the thickest fighting. They'll be the first into the breach. They'll be the first sent against, the most fearsome monsters they have, because the aim is that they will not survive the day. So that's the Death Company.
That's awesome.
And so what's that mean? I mean, firstly, that's awesome. Correct.
Yeah.
rules terms, I mean, these guys are fairly notorious now for being terrifying, especially now that the base ones have 2 wounds.
Yeah.
The Firstborn Marines have 2 wounds. There is also a Death Company Intercessors unit, which is Intercessors with Death Company. The difference is they have an extra attack, they have slightly different weapon options, and they can't take jump packs. So I just run the Death Company Marines, but most of what I say here applies equally to the others. The thing that's really scary about them is that the number of attacks you can get on the charge. So they have 2 attack space, fine, whatever. You get +1 attack for being a Space Marine with Shock Assault. If the Assault Doctrine is active, they get Savage Echoes. That's another +1 attack. You might give them an Astartes Chainsword, in which case they would get another attack. And then the Black Rage ability gives them another attack on the charge. So from turn 3 onwards, if you charge with this guy and you give them Chainswords, they have 6 attacks each.
Wow.
And this could be a unit of 10.
Oof.
So you might be talking about 60 attacks without really even trying. You can also give them things like Thunder Hammers, Power Fists, all that good stuff. They're absolutely horrifying. It's a complete blender unit. And it's a sort of unit that will like evaporate units of Orc Boys or something like that. They are pretty notorious actually for being kind of scary. They aren't that hard to kill, would be the flip side. They did get harder with 2 wounds. They have only, quote unquote, have a 6-up, feel no pain. So they do die fairly easily actually if you shoot them. There is also a rule which bears mention. This is a stratagem called Forlorn Hope. It's just been FAQ'd so that you can only do this to 1 unit, where you can actually move them before the battle starts as well. So imagine you've got jump pack ones, you put them on the edge of your deployment zone before the battle starts, you move them up 12 inches. So they're only 12 inches away from your lines. They can then move again turn 1. It's horrifying.
Wow.
So both in the lore and on the table, they have an absolutely horrific reputation for savagery. I think this is a great example of rules reflecting the background, because not only are they absolutely terrifying in combat, they do die fairly easily. It's very unusual for, if you take 1 unit of Death Company, the odds are it will not survive the game, because your opponent will shoot everything at it. So you have both sides reflecting.
And they're getting stuck in too. Like they're not going to hang out on an objective. Actually, in the past, they couldn't even score, I think.
Yeah, at one point they couldn't even score. I think actually the Death Company keyword means you can't hold objectives anymore.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to have to check that one though.
Okay. That's all right. So yeah, I think you're right. I think the Death Company is kind of they really are the Blood Angels kind of unit. They kind of represent the where they're the flaw, and they're like this quintessential Blood Angels unit. In the past, the way that the Death Company were represented were really interesting, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah. Just to quickly clarify what I was going to say about not being able to hold objectives. They can hold objectives. They cannot perform actions. Things like raise the flags, they can't do that. Okay. They also cannot fall back in your movement phase.
Fair.
Which is, both of those are, I think, excellent rules. I'm glad to see those in there. I think thematically that makes so much sense. I would actually go further. I would not let them hold objectives, but that's just me.
Right.
Just to really, the idea of them hanging around to hold an objective when there's something for them to go and kill doesn't make sense to me. So I would be quite happy to see them lose the ability to hold objectives altogether, but that's just me.
Okay. So what was the rule like in 3rd edition? Like I had a buddy who used to have some extra Death Company laying around just in case he needed it. So and I think that's where this rule comes from.
So this is how you selected the Death Company in 3rd edition. I mean, I don't think this would work in the current world of match play, but I think this would have been a fantastic rule to be in Crusade, for example. And you could it works perfectly with the way 9th edition rules work. You just port it over and it'll be fine. The way it used to work in 3rd edition was you automatically got the Death Company but the way you determined how many you got was you rolled for the models in each unit. So you went around each infantry squad, excluding characters and things like that. 1 to 3, nothing happens. 4 to 5, 1 model joins the Death Company. On a 6, 1 model joins and you roll again. So you could potentially lose 2, 3, or even more if you roll well/badly, depending on which unit it is. And that determines how many models you have. So some games you might have 2 models in your Death Company. Others, you'll lose an entire Devastator squad to the Death Company, which I think is fantastic. The other rule they had then was that the only way you could get one of the special close combat weapons was if you selected a sergeant to fall to the Black Rage. Mm-hmm. Then that's how you got the power swords and special options. So in the world of 9th edition, what you could do is something like, say, it had to be a model that was able to take the weapon. So if you wanted to get a Thunderhammer, you could say, it has to be a Terminator, or it has to be an Assault Sergeant, something like that. Mm. Whereas a Tactical Marine would then have to take the bolt. And that would be kind of a cool way to do it, if you wanted to get really involved in this rule. Yeah. But we thought that was just worth mentioning because I think it's a fantastic rule, even if it's not the best match play.
Right. And they had the Bolter Chainsword, or?
They have bolt pistol chainsword in
okay.
3rd edition.
But that was better anyway, because that gave you the +1 attack.
I can't remember how it worked. Yeah, it was +1 attack for 2 close combat weapons back then.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I think that's right. It would work really good for a one-off narrative play experience, you could just say. Because if you're running power level anyways, how you shift the models around really doesn't matter. So just, shift a few models from units that lose a few models to the new Death Company, and you're good to go. It is kind of how it works in a kind of similar way in Crusade, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So I picked Sanguinary Guard. Sanguinary Guard exists in pretty much every Blood Angel successor. They wear this golden Heresy era armor, which is beautiful and ornate. They keep it up themselves. It's nearly impossible to destroy. It's made of a material called angel steel. Their glaives and swords, they're called Incarmine glaives or swords or axes, are made from the same material. They're nearly impossible to destroy. The role of the guard in the heresy was that they were the personal guard of Sanguinius. They got this beautiful golden armor. They fly. They're pretty cool, and they've got the Sanguinius mask on, which actually, if it's this piece of archaeotech that has a machine spirit, and it's so connected to the wearer that if they die, it stays stuck to their face for like a week or something. I forget. And it actually takes on the appearance of the person who died. So the next person who picks up the mask wears the last person's face. I think that's how that works.
Wow.
Yeah. But the Sanguinor, I think his is always the visage of Sanguinius. I think. Mm-hmm. I would have to look that up, but I think that's true. Right now they actually do serve the same kind of purpose, like their bodyguards. They have some abilities that reflect that, but they also are always out for achieving incredible deeds, and you're not going to waste your veteran assault shock troops on just personal defense if you're trying to get some work done. So I'm sure they get used for all kinds of things. Personally, they kind of express themselves as a kind of an example of what a Blood Angel should be. They're kind of they're in control of their emotions. Well, unless they're actually murdering fools. But you don't get to be if you're unhinged, you don't get to be a Sanguinary Guard. Let's put it that way. And they really try to pattern themselves on Sanguinius himself, which I think everybody kind of does to a certain extent. And that's what I was getting at much, earlier in our very long conversation, that like a lot of these blood angels, they're drinking the blood of the Primarch. They're seeing visions of the Primarch. They all kind of they very much look like the Primarch. Like they're really it's very interesting how they're trying to pattern themselves and emulate their father. The Sanguinor is a interesting character, much like the Saint Celestine. He really only shows up when he really is needed, but he's like last second showing up, like last second. He is the living embodiment of Deus Ex Machina. Like they just rename him Deus Ex Machina because that's what he's there for. That's his purpose. Yeah. Nobody knows who he is. Some say it's kind of like one of those honorifics, like it's a different person all the time, but like he kind of like the Eldar aspect warrior shrine masters. What are they called? Whatever they are. Like it's kind of a title more than it is an actual just one person, but some people say it is I forgot his name already. The ancient
is Escalon.
Yeah. Some say it's him. However you pronounce it. Yeah. But who knows? Who knows? Whatever you want it to be, that's what he is. The Sanctuary Guard are basically super Vanguard veterans. They got a 2+ save. All their weapons deal 2 damage. The Angelic Visage is really the big thing, I think. They cause the enemy to have a -1 to hit in melee. And they also have the heirs to Ascalon. I had it right there, and I didn't realize it. If they're within 6 inches of a Blood Angel's Warlord, they have +1 to hit. So they have special ability. They're a little bit more potent if they are defending the Warlord. But these guys are all kitted out with special weapons and stuff like that. Like you kind of want to use them where you can to penetrate the enemy defenses, because they're going to break a line. Like whatever they hit into, they're going to break it.
Yeah.
Especially other Space Marines, chaos or otherwise. They're gonna munch them up real good. So yeah, I thought those guys were cool, and also a thematic choice for the Blood Angels. Anything to add for the Sanguinary Guard, John?
You can hit most of it.
Cool.
Yep, they hit like a truck, basically. I would say they are fairly fragile. They're surprisingly fragile, actually, Sanguinary Guards. So they're a bit of a weird one. To point, because they hit so hard. So on one day they'll do a tremendous amount of damage. On another day they'll do almost nothing because they get hit by loads of plasma guns and just fall over. They're a very swingy unit.
Yeah, no invulnerable save might. I think it's always kind of been their Achilles heel. And I think if you're playing with light terrain, they could be very situational, because you might be relying on them deep striking and getting that charge off, or you could start them on the battlefield in some ruins, and then just move the 12 inches before charging. It's a tough call. It really depends on your terrain setup and what your enemy does and what kind of enemy you're facing. If you're facing an in-your-face enemy, then just deploy the suckers, because they'll get a charge off for sure.
And they are very fast as well.
Yeah,
because they have the jump pads.
Right. If you're playing a cagey opponent, I don't know. I think you're relying on deep strike and that 8-inch charge. It's kind of iffy. So they might just be standing out in the middle of nowhere getting shot. So,
I mean, this is where you take your icon of the angel to get that reroll on the charge. You drop a character down with them.
Yeah.
Or you can, you can't do the chaplain thing anymore. I was about to mention one thing you could do in 8th edition was use a chaplain with on Wings of Fire and move him next. I think that now doesn't work because of the way they've rephrased some of the rules. The other thing they've lost recently is they used to have transhuman physiology, which now only applies to Primaris, and one of the old relics used to give them a 5-up feel no pain or ignore wounds, both of which have now vanished, and so they're much less survivable than they were even.
Okay. I think it was, you know what, just an aside, it was Dante who has Death Mask of Sanguinius.
That's correct,
yeah. I didn't mention the Sanguinary Ancient. I think that comes in the same kit as the Sanguinary Guard, but it's a separate elite character unit. The banner aura for that one, I haven't read it yet, so I'll just read it. Blood Angel's core within 6 inches, add 1 to the leadership. In addition, if it's destroyed on a D6 on a 4+, they're not destroyed. Do not remove the destroyed model from play. It can after the attacking model has finished making its attack. Oh, it's like the other banners. You get to fight before you die. Okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah,
they also give +1 to hit with Chapter Banner.
Oh, yeah.
And you can give them a relic banner that gives, I think it's +2 to move and advance.
Ooh.
So they have options, actually.
That's cool.
They're not quite as good as they were.
I like that. Okay. Fair enough. So that's cool. One thing I'd like to see listeners, if you want to do us a solid, go ahead and model up a Sanguinary Dreadnought. I think that would be super rad. If you do it, I'll let you play a Dreadnought that just flies all the time, and if you play me at Adepticon.
You can actually, there is I think that one of the Blood Angels Horus Heresy units is a Dreadnought with a jump pack.
That's amazing.
Which for me slightly jumps the shark, I have to admit. But you could, pay that gold and give him some wings, and you are on your way to Sanguinary Dreadnought, I would say.
Just call me the Fonz because I'm jumping that shark.
Yeah, you do that. You are fun with that.
Jason, what did you pick? Oh, I can't imagine what you picked. What could it be?
Well, okay, so I picked Librarian Dreadnought because...
What?
Yeah,
Speaking
and I'll be honest,
of leaping over sharks on wings of red psychic energy.
There you go. I think I find them to be kind of fascinating. I actually own one of those kits and have built it, but I never painted it because I got it whenever I was first playing and did not realize that it was part of a different codex. So yeah, but yeah, definitely take that. I think it'd be fun. What is it? Variant of Furioso Dread houses the mortal remains of a fallen Blood Angel librarian. They're armed with it's essentially a force staff, but it has another name, so it can't be replaced by the previous relic I chose. But it's also armed with a blood fist or a blood talon with an underslung flamer melted gunner flavor. Yeah. There's no shooting, or there's very little. So
except with mind bullets.
Yeah, mind bullets, man. I mean, if you could fly,
let's be honest, the Librarian Dreadnought speaks for itself. We'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break, come back, and talk about Blood Angels on Crusade.
Hey Archons, tired of the boring predictability and efficiency of stuff that always works? You need the Slip Party Bus! Got an extra 473 points that you can't find a solid use for? You need the Slip Party Bus! You could spend 420 points on 3 reliable Lance Ravagers pumping out 9 Dark Lance shots per turn. That'll only give up 3 victory points, or you can drop 473 points on 2 Archons, 8 Slip, and a Raider for 11 victory points. You need the Slip Party Bus! The classic Slip Party Bus. Still awesome. Party Bus! Still hilarious. Party Bus! It's the Slip Party Bus! If you love the Slith Party Bus, you'll want to check out our other exciting products. We have the Rack Wiffle Ball Bat, the Trueborn, and the Blood Bride. Trueborn and Blood Bride models no longer available. The classic Slith Party Bus, still awesome, still hilarious. It's the Slith Party Bus!
Hey mofos, are you looking for more Warhammer 40k video content? Well, the Scarred Cast posts regular battle reports as well as tactics and strategy videos. Be sure to check out all the cool hobby content for the avid tabletop wargamer. That's Scarred Cast, Skared on YouTube.
And we're back. So, that's what you get.
Edit a lot. Okay.
The flaw. So in Crusade, the flaw is handled a little bit differently. It's not an upgrade for a unit. It's instead, I'll just kind of go over it a little bit. So every game, at the end of the battle, usually you keep track of how many kills a unit has in Crusade. And you keep track of kills in combat and kills in shooting. Until now, that hasn't really mattered much. But for the Blood Angels, it's super important because for every unit you killed in combat, you add one. So you roll a dice at the end of the game for each unit. If the dice roll equals or is less than the number of units you killed in combat, you gain a flaw point. Once you reach 3 flaw points, you roll 3d6. If you roll below your unit's leadership, subtract 1 flaw point. Otherwise, you're in trouble. You fall to the Black Rage. Characters in Dreadnoughts are replaced with the equivalent Death Company unit for them. And so they still keep a lot of their stuff. Other units, regular units, instead they suffer a devastating blow and they lose 2d6 experience points, which represents some of their members being shuffled off to the Death Company. You can also, for those units, choose to replace them with a unit of Death Company instead. All the Death Company units don't gain or lose XP. They don't take out of action tests. But they do get is 1 battle trait of your choice during the game. So they count as 1 Crusade point because they have 1 battle trait. The point is, every time you play, it's a different unit of Death Company because they die at the end. They either get killed in combat or they get their heads chopped off, right? You could say, in your personal narrative, well, this is actually the same one. They survived the last one, so they're just continuing to fight till the end. That's totally fine. That's up to you. But that's the whole point of that. You're not supposed to get attached to these. Even the characters, you're not supposed to get attached to them because they just die. Okay. So we went through and did the same deal with the Crusade section as we did with the regular section. And we picked our favorites of the special rules. So, John, which agenda did you pick?
So I picked Valor of the Angels. So this is you add 1 to your Valor of the Angels tally each time the character you pick performs a heroic intervention, destroys a character or monster or warlord with melee weapon, or they die. And you gain that many experience points at the end of the game. If they're destroyed during the game, and so you gain a point for that, you can choose to, instead of rolling like you normally do, you can actually choose to just remove them from your order of battle, so they've actually been killed, if you do that, every other unit in your army gains an experience point.
That's awesome.
So this is that representing this sort of heroic death of this character that inspires all the other Blood Angels in your army to greater deeds. So I think that's just really cool. I love that. It's brilliant.
That is awesome. Like a noble sacrifice. Mine is similar. An honorable death in battle, +1 XP for everyone if a selected death company unit is destroyed. So they're helping them die. Like, okay, we need to get these guys onto the battlefield so they can die. So if the death company unit dies, everybody else gets +1 XP. However, if they don't die, you don't get the +1 RP at the end of the game. So it's up to you to ensure the death of that death company unit. I thought that was really cool and thematic. Jason, what'd you pick?
I'm just going to stay with I think it's Reaper agenda from the main rules.
Right. Right.
You know, I mean, for me, that's always an easy one for me to remember to calculate. And what is it? It's the unit with the most kills. I mean, that's already kind of Blood Angels anyway.
Right. And I think it's important to remember, like, it helps us remember that, you can look to both the core book and the Space Marines book for inspiration on what agendas you want to take that are most thematic for your army. The Space Marine book it's definitely valid for any chapter you're playing, especially ones that are still Codex compliant. So don't forget that, everybody. Like, there's a lot of this like, instead of having a separate full Codex for each chapter, that's why they're kind of doing these supplements so that they don't have to repeat the same. Like in 8th edition, a lot of rules got repeated, and that was very boring. So instead, you can just look to the parent Codex for information. John, what did you pick for your Crusade relic?
My Crusade relic, I picked a legendary relic, which is the Encarmin Warblade. And this is the sword of First Captain Raldron of the Blood Angels Legion, which is obviously kept in a very secure vault within the heart of the Archangelicon. And it's only taken out for the greatest of warriors. And so it's quite, this is an incredible honor to wield this sword. So that's really cool. Everyone likes that. And it's also just absolutely insanely good. You have to give it to a model with a power sword, a mastercrafted power sword, a relic blade, or an executioner relic blade, and it replaces the sword. It's a melee weapon, +2 strength, AP -4, 3 damage, and on top of that, if you make an unmodified wound roll of 6, it does 2 mortal wounds in addition. That's absolutely insane. Yeah. So that's cool. I picked that one.
Like a freaking dude has a lightsaber. I picked the Chalice of Bal. Here's the thing, you guys. Let me read what it says here. This rough grail is carved from the very bedrock of Bal. While it cannot match the artifice of some other examples, for example, like ones that are crafted by Sanguinius himself, it is nonetheless a precious relic of the Blood Angels carried into battle several of the greatest sanguinary priests in the history of chapter. When held aloft, it reminds the Blood Angels of that which they fight to protect. It just increases the Blood Chalice ability to 9 inches. The important thing is there are a lot of relics out there. A lot of vehicles, a lot of stuff out there that's named after Baal, like the Baal Predator, the Hood of Baal, the Ball of Baal, the Baal. But how many of them are actually made from Baal? None of them, except for this one. This is the only one that's literally made from the planet. So that's why I picked it.
Nice.
Jason.
I chose Angel's Wings. Jump pack model only. Enemy models cannot fire Overwatch at the bearer. Can reroll charge rolls for the bearer. I think I liked this better when it was part of the Raven Guard Codex, but whatever.
Yeah, this is one of the notorious relics from 8th edition for the Blood Angels that made Tau players weak tears of blood because you gave it your Smash Captain, and it was disgusting. Yeah, they hated that.
Originally made for Leonardos of the captain of 8th Company in the waning years of M32. That's an old jump pack.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, not last. The last of the rules, we have honorifics. So how do you get these with Space Marines Codex? Is it a requisition to get an honorific for a character? Is it? I don't know. Do you guys have the?
I don't have my rule book by me. I'm sorry.
Well, either way, there's some new ones that you can pick.
It replaces the ones from Codex Space Marines. This is one where you can't choose the Codex Space Marines ones. You have to pick from one of these.
They replace Master of the Keep, Master of the Arsenal, Master of the Fleet, Master of the Rites, and the Chief Victualler and Master of Relics. So you can't take those from the Space Marines. John, which one did you pick?
So this was a very easy pick for me. So these honorifics all match up to the titles of the captains we were discussing about 5 hours ago now. So each of the captains in the Blood Angels has their own title. Each of these rules corresponds to one of those titles. So I obviously picked Lord Adjudicator, because that's the title of the 4th Company captain, and my Blood Angels are 4th Company. So without even reading the rules, I picked this one. The Lord Adjudicator is a golden exemplar of the chapter's noble values. He must be, for by them does he judge his battle brothers. And that means that once per battle, you get a free Epic Deed stratagem, which is pretty good as well. So that's what I picked.
Super cool. In fact, I like that. I picked Lord of Skyfall. Again, giant angel space station riding a globe space station. I mean, yeah.
It kind of reminds me of Mega Maid from Spaceballs.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I assume that this character is the captain of the 8th Company. And okay. Upon Wings of Fire costs 0 CP. Also, Descent of Angels costs 0 CP. Both of those, I think, are 1 CP ones, anyways. But it's pretty damn good. You can rearm and resupply your flyers for 0 RP. So if you want to swap out, like, if you want your Storm Raven to have multi-meltas instead of assault cannons, you can just swap it out between battles, no problem. You have your Storm Raven is an Omni-Mech, if for those of you savvy with the lingo of the BattleTech. Pretty cool. It makes a lot of sense. Like he's super into the Descent of Angels thing, but he's also the chief administrator of the big space dock in the ball system. So, yeah. Jason, did you also?
Just because I like the name, it reminds me of the Bond film, I guess, which makes me want to know what showed up first, the Bond film or this lore. So
I think it's this lore because that title's in the 5th edition Codex.
There we go.
So there you go. Warhammer inspiring James Bond.
Fair enough.
Good. I like that. That makes me feel better.
I think that the Crusade rules in this book are pretty great.
I think they're awesome. I'd also say we've forgotten the requisitions, so we should probably get back to those quickly.
Did we really?
Oh, yeah.
We did. We marched straight past them in our zeal to get to the Crusade relics.
You know what? Fair. Fair. John, what did you pick for your requisition?
I went with the Custodian of the Lost, which is a Blood Angels chaplain one, and it's very simple. You can re-roll one failed Black Rage test at the end of the battle. So this represents the chaplain who's able to control the Black Rage because of their inspiring oratory and skill of dealing with those suffering from the Black Rage. So I thought that was really cool and thematic, and potentially also quite useful if your captain falls to Black Rage.
Oh, that's neat. I noticed, the before we get too far, I know, they have actually kind of shifted which aspects of Crusade forces get used from Codex to Codex based on what's needed. Like the Blood Angels have a bunch of requisitions where, there aren't any other unit upgrades, or there aren't any damn it, I forgot what they're called. They don't use every type of upgrade in these books. It really depends on what they need for that specific faction. So I thought that was really cool. I picked the Blood Cleansing. So we saw this, we've seen this in some books, particularly Mephiston. Sometimes they'll stick a Space Marine into a sarcophagus to calm their bloodthirst, and that's basically what this represents: is 2 RP, and it lets you reduce a unit's flaw point by 1, which is pretty good. I like that. That's neat. You just stick them in a sarcophagus.
I had problems with the requisitions because the ones I thought the most interesting were literally the 2 you guys picked.
Well,
because the rest of us were like, yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. I think that Blood Cleansing is really cool in a narrative sort of sense, but I don't know that I would choose. I think if I was using it, if I was playing Blood Angels, I would use Custodian of the Lost instead, just because it would be cheaper in the long run with RP points.
I guess the thing with Custodian of the Lost is you have to have a chaplain.
Yeah, that's true.
Which you probably want anyway as Blood Angel, but you do need to have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other ones look like they like one lets you switch somebody to Death Company, another one says you can't even have Death Company, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you don't select either.
Just give the unit which is not a Death Company unit an extra battle trait.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Fair that might be okay. I don't know.
That might be okay.
Right. It's a bit bland, I think.
But overall, I think it's the Crusade rules really do represent the Blood Angels in the field. I really like them. I think I personally like the supplement. John, have you given any thought to the supplement in general? Like, is there anything that you feel like, other than just kind of units missing, that they don't make anymore? Do you feel like
that's not a problem.
Yeah. I mean that's what stands out to me is units missing, but just the rules in general. Do you have any thoughts?
My overall gut reaction to this book is I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of the art, it's the best Blood Angels Codex by an absolute country mile. I love the rules. The thing I particularly like about the rules is that they're really good for your, like I was saying before, your tactical marines, your intercessors now don't feel like attacks. You really want to take those units. Or at least if you do take those units, they're going to be really effective. I think there's so much thematic material in here. I think it's absolutely brilliant. The Crusade stuff is all wonderful. I can't wait to try it when I'm able to play games again.
Right.
I am slightly concerned, I have to admit, that the amount of rules stacking on rules might get a bit oppressive to play against. That's my one concern. If you play against an all-jump pack army of Blood Angels, you can make... Potentially, it might be a very unfun game for your opponent. If you get all your charges off, it could be over turn 2 very fast. That's my one concern about it.
Yeah.
But I think otherwise it's fantastic, and I really like it. The other thing I really like about it is they've gone back to doing some of the lore a bit more obliquely. So you have, for example, the perspective of a rogue trader in here. You have this page you're talking about before with Warzone Acrobella, which doesn't just tell you what happens.
Yeah.
It gives you all these artifacts and sort of different accounts of what happened. And they do that in the 3rd edition Codex, and they sort of give up on it until this one. I think it's a really, really interesting way to present the material, and I much prefer it to just like, this is what happens.
Here's the answer.
So I'd love to see more of that. Yeah, I'd love to see more of this. I think this is great.
I think, listening to the designers talk on Warhammer TV, they accept that some players want answers. And that
I hate hamsters. I'll freely admit that.
Yeah. No, that's totally fine. But also, like some folks don't like that. So what they've decided on is for every question they answer, they try to add like D3 additional questions that need to be answered. Which I think is an interesting and quite fair compromise. Which is interesting. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break, come back and close out the show.
This is David Annandale, and you're listening to Masters of the Forge, where they bring the world of Warhammer 40,000 to life on your tabletop.
This is Rob Sanders, and you're listening to the Masters of the Forge, where the world of 40k comes to life on your tabletop.
Oh, we've reached level 6. John, thank you so much for joining us. I think you added a lot of insight in this topic, and I'm really glad you decided to join us and put the effort in. You put a lot of effort into research and making sure your thoughts were all kind of covered on each section. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been terrific to come on here and spend the best part of, I think it's 4 hours now, talking about Warhammer.
Yeah.
Like, what a treat. I love it. And thank you so much for having me on. And I hope the listeners learned something or found something interesting, perhaps a new perspective that they enjoyed. So
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. That's great. So before we go, there's something that we did forget, Jason, and I hope that you'll indulge me. Everyone, please turn to your hymnals on page 61. Jason, do you have your dice handy?
Something nice.
I have my dice handy, yes.
Okay. Can you roll a dice for me?
All right. Just one?
Well, I need a D66. D66.
Okay, 4. Oh. So 42.
42.
That's a good number.
All right. My captain is Donatellus. Yes. He's a great. It's Wendy's favorite Ninja Turtle. All right. One more roll for me, please.
Okay. And 53.
Donatellus Mascio. Well, Donatellus Mascio. Wow. I love it. John, do you have dice handy?
I do. I have my Horus Heresy Blood Angels dice handy. So
all right.
Okay, your new lieutenant is called, or no, the sergeant of your new Terminator squad.
He's got a name already. 45. So
I love that he has a name already. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, what is it?
He's Victorino. He's one of the Space Marine heroes, actually. So I cheated on that one.
Oh, neat.
But they all get names anyway. So
all right.
45, which is Raylan.
Ooh, Raylan.
62.
62. Ooh, Furio. I don't know if I want to meet Raylan Furio or if I don't want to meet Raylan Furio.
Really depends on whether he's fallen to the Black Rage yet or not, doesn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
All right, Jason. What's your
for myself,
Blood Angels captain's name?
31 41.
Tuomani Lucar. Ooh. That's a librarian name. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, with that, next episode, I'm playing with the idea of doing a round table of notable characters in the 40K universe.
Okay.
I'll talk to you more about it later, Jason. But until then,
okay. Play the game the way you want to.
That's right. Exsanguinate. We'd love it if you could give us a positive rating and review on iTunes.
If you'd like to keep in contact with us, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter by searching for Masters of the Forge. And you can follow our hobby progress on Instagram with the hashtag Masters of the Forge.
You can also contact us at mastersoftheforge@gmail.com if you have any questions, topic suggestions, or if you'd like to advertise your creative hobby endeavor. Thanks again for listening.
The music used in this podcast was made by Parad of the duo Sublevel 3. The track is used with his permission. This podcast is protected by the Creative Commons Attribution, No Derivatives, Non-Commercial International License. More information about this license and contact information if you have any requests can be found at our blog, mastersoftheforge.com.
It's such a good feeling to play games your way. It's such a happy feeling 40K'ing away. And when you throw dice with story in mind, it's such a wonderful way to unwind. It's a good feeling, a very good feeling, the feeling you know that we'll be back when the fortnight's new, and we'll have new ideas for you, and you'll have things you'll want to talk about. We will too.